Welcome to the Future Generations podcast, providing you with the world-changing content necessary to inspire you, your family, and our planet to a life of optimal health potential. We'll help you make the choices that powerfully influence the lives you bring into this world. It's time to strengthen our resolve to do better now and for our future generations with your host, Dr. Stanton Hom.
Okay, welcome to the Future Generations podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stanton Hom. I have with me a very special, entertaining, we'll just call you a human because we're going to keep it at a very human level. You know, we're not going to get overly intellectual, overly professional, but he does just put on his glasses on that I wish I had my glasses on. But I have the one and only Chris Crutchfield, 6'7" podcast. We Are Warriors, amazing person, but also entertaining. And at the same time, a very down-to-earth truth teller, which I absolutely love. And so, Chris, I would love for you to introduce yourself. I'd love our audience to get to know you both personally and professionally.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Hom. Should I call you Dr. Hom? Should I call you homie?
Call me whatever you want, man.
He's the homie, Dr. Homie.
Thank you. I love it.
And okay, well, my name is Chris. I am, in fact, 6 feet 7 inches tall, which is the namesake for my discussion platform called the 6'7" podcast. And I am cool. I am a really great person. I think very highly of myself. No, I'm just playing. I am happy to be here today, to be honest. I've been looking forward to this conversation because I really admire your work, Dr. Hom. And I've seen you in the past. And sorry, I was very thrilled to know that, you know, you guys reached out and wanted to discuss some things. And so I said, here I am, and I'm ready to talk.
Well, it's I appreciate that, first off, because it's crazy right now. I'm sure you face it. I mean, you were in Hollywood, you were in LA, and you know, we had a short conversation before this, like you left for a reason. And it's a treacherous world out there if you're somewhat in this type of state like we're in, like literally the state of California, given perspectives that are acceptable, normal, responsible, safe, you fill in the blank of all those things. And when you just speak a little sense, or you speak a little real, like it doesn't go so well socially, doesn't go so well in many settings. But I'm curious, like, where'd you come from? Like, what music background?
I can tell you about how 6'7" got here.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. Excuse me. So I was a young lad. Now, I was born in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was always pretty, I would say, like my upbringing was very stable in very many ways. The oldest of 3, and I've always been into figuring things out. So while I don't have a medical degree or a medical background, but I am very good at learning how things work. I don't have an IT background, but I mean, I do have technically kind of a computer science background, but I was fascinated with computers growing up. So I learned everything about how computers work. I was fascinated with the internet when it was first launching. So I learned everything about how that works. I became fascinated with storytelling and filmmaking and just digital art in digital form. And I, kind of did a little of that, little of this growing up. I did some on-screen stuff, some theater stuff, some musical, like band or instrument stuff. But it wasn't really until college or a little after college where I realized people just want stories, and stories include soundscapes, and the music is the biggest part of the story, really, at least from an emotional standpoint. So I kind of started just trying to develop a storytelling technique slash fabric or quality or tone that I could carve out as my own. And what that's kind of been across all of my professional and more extracurricular side project type things is this kind of vibrant, colorful, very in your face, very bombastic pop of information, inspiration, or zest, like the squeeze of a lime when like the juice bits squirt out in your general direction. And so when I was living in Los Angeles, working in the entertainment industry as a director, motion graphics artist, and producer. And about halfway into my time in LA, I realized that the world did not work how I thought it worked. And everybody has like avenues that break the matrix for them. Some people it's their child getting injured by a pharmaceutical. Other people it is their dealings with the medical industry that kind of, leave them high and dry and hurting and broken, in debt and things like that, without really fixing the issue that they went to the medical system for. And with others, it's just different things. And so for me, it was this convergence of seeing enough behind the scenes Hollywood stuff and reading enough about systems of this world to work so that I could click enough, seatbelts or latches to go, whoa, there's something else here. And the only reason I feel this way is because I actually know the person in this document. And very few people can say that. And that gives me a unique perspective, 6'7", very tall, looking over the fence of the maze. And I can tell y'all that there's a trick going on here. And most people just can't see the trick because y'all too short. But it's okay. I'm tall and I'm here to help. So that's kind of the motif that I've set this podcast in. But it started for me in 2015, and a series of discussions just really led. It was a series of life events that led to a soul searching, if you will, that then sparked a series of research years where I took pretty much all of 2015, 2016, and 2017 off. Like I worked very little. I kind of just turned my burner down to simmer. I just was kind of like, I probably looked like Castaway, like Wilson at the end of the third year, right? Because I think I shaved and showered. I'm pretty sure I did that a couple times, but I read a lot. And the reading and the time of just like, and I'm always telling people this, not everybody has to learn how I learned, but the cycle of life, the treadmill belt has to break, or the bike has to get a dent in something has to happen where you're just and at that point, then you're ready to learn. And hopefully that's not a child becoming injured, but for some people that is, whatever the reason. And so I got to the point where I just was like, I have to know how this works. And at some point I'll talk about it. But until I feel like I'm ready to, I just feel like I'm a student in school. I don't feel like I'm a professor yet. So I just want to learn more. And so I did that for years until we don't have to censor ourselves on this platform.
No, not at all.
The land of the free and the home of the brave. I'm over here in North Carolina. Where are you at? California? Woo! So until COVID started. And once COVID started, I just remember a couple weeks into it being like, I remember the day that one of the last trips I went on is I had a video shoot in Texas, living in LA. We flew to Texas. I remember waking up in the hotel. This is in early March of 2020 and eating breakfast before our shoot and seeing on the news, we're here in Dallas, Texas, and the first case of coronavirus has hit the Diamond Princess cruise ship. I remember being like, the news don't be telling y'all nothing. None of y'all really know how the news works, because I remember, like, I don't have to get into too many LA stories, but I had a neighbor, one of my next door neighbors was very high up in a movie studio and that owned several television studios. And it was her job to proofread about 70 scripts every single week for TV shows, this TV show, that TV show, all the stuff y'all watch on any of the networks that are under the Warner Brothers umbrella, which included things like HBO and all these other kind of specialty networks. And she would have to read 70-hour-long or 30-minute long scripts, which is a lot of reading every single week, and make sure that any product placement deals that the studio had didn't conflict with storytelling moments from the scenes. Like if somebody takes like a Swiffer and like hits this character, like Swiffer is a sponsor, so we can't have you murdering this cast member with our sponsor's product. That's not gonna fly. So I'm learning, right, the back channels of what really fuels television. And that's across the board, right? People really have this idea that, I turn to channel 11, that's Fox. Yep. That's where this type of thinking, depending on which side of this ridiculous aisle you're on, that's what these people talk about. And whether that's something you like and agree with or something you disagree with, you have the idea that if you just flip the channel 2, that's different, that they're telling the truth and they're lying on this one. And that the same guy doesn't own both channels, or the same funding sources don't contribute to both channels. And that's just simply not true. That's not how television works. So because I could really see this matrix, if you will, from behind it, and like, yeah, like what y'all are seeing over there is not how it works from back here. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And so that's kind of when I started speaking up about it on my podcast. And I had my wife and several friends like, Chris, you need to talk about the stuff you know. I'm like, yeah, but people ain't ready to hear all this. But you need to talk about the stuff you know, bro. You do. Come on. All right, fine. And then I did, and then I got to talking about this vaccine, and the rest is history.
It's why don't you, maybe before that, tell me what you've read. What were some of the books that kind of first opened?
Yeah. Okay. So I remember reading, to be honest, like full disclosure, the biggest book that really clicked for me was when I started reading into institutional, clinical, and military grade mind control techniques, MK Ultra, and everything that spawns from that. And that really started for this documentary my father sent me in January of 2015. And that kind of painted this slightly bigger picture about the, the systems of religion and money and economics and finance and, health and pop culture in this way that for me was what I always say is the border to the bigger picture. It didn't have a lot of details, but it was very good framework. And I remember one of the chapters in this documentary was talking about the Laurel Canyon compound and how famous Laurel Canyon was in the 70s and 60s, and how this person, and I remember being like, Laurel Canyon, like I used to drive on Laurel Canyon every day. Like I used to live on Laurel Canyon. Like some of my best friends still live there. And then when I found out where the specific place was, so Laurel Canyon is a road that's very famous in Los Angeles that goes from the valley into Hollywood. You can take the highway, the Beverly Glen. There's a couple different ways you can get from the north to the main part of LA, and Laurel Canyon is one of them. And at the top of Laurel Canyon, at the top of the mountain, is Mulholland Drive, the famous Mulholland Drive. And in a brief past life before I met my lovely wife, I dated someone who worked for a celebrity who lived on the top of Mulholland, and I would have to pass the Laurel Canyon compound every time I went there, which was pretty regularly. So I just remember being like, I parked next to this building half the time. You know what I'm saying? It was that close to my reality. And I just remember being like, I had no clue. I mean, you see this giant wall of a compound, you can't really see what's over it. But that's how all those celebrity homes are. It's like great ornate gates and walls. And then when you do happen to get behind them, you're like, oh, this is an entire city back here. There's a theme park over there. But I just remember diving into how it's possible for behavioral modification techniques, hypnosis, trauma, and a certain cocktail of events to actually alter the willpower of another individual. That fascinated me. And that really opened the door to a whole can of worms. And half these worms I like worked with and did videos with and stuff. I was like, oh man, that's why she was twitching like that. I knew something was weird about it. So I just had this whole, my epiphany moment was very long and very detailed, because I was in the thick of things to a decent degree. And while I definitely became aware of esoteric practices, I fortunately never engaged or dabbled in none of that nonsense. But I was close enough in proximity and in meetings and in homes and in studios to know, okay, no, there's something to this. I just don't want no part of it. And these people who are a part of it are all weird, and half of them are shady anyway. So it was enough for me, even at the beginning, to know there's something to this. And so by the time COVID started, I had already crossed the threshold of really getting a grip on the backstory of how the government really works, the funding of power and influence, and where that comes from. How, the American government isn't as autonomous as they would have you believe, and how we still, to a large degree, are a British Commonwealth state, or maritime corporation, I should say, owned by the British Commonwealth. And I just see this pattern in how the Commonwealth countries are handling COVID. So it's obviously lockstep. And because I came to this whole discussion, so, I mean, again, 5 years into a complete reordering of this is how things really work, while I'm talking with people who know presidents and stuff, and they're like, "Yo, don't believe nothing you see on TV is all of it." And multiple administrations, have told, excuse me, not the administrations themselves, but individuals that I know who were involved with multiple administrations, both Democratic and Republican. Both basically told me the same thing. What you see on TV is TV.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up. And I am coming from TV. I'm like, got it. It's like this channel, that channel, this channel, the same person and the same money pays for those pipes. So please don't think that I know you're smarter than this, but anybody watching, when you see what you see on Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network, these things are subsidiaries. These networks are subsidiaries of bigger networks that are subsidiaries of bigger networks. There's 6 people who call the shots in terms of TV. And I've been told 2 people who call the shots in terms of radio, in terms of industry. Now, people break through this all the time because the public sway does count for something, but it's really like a primed type thing, like priming the gas to go in the engine, but so like the machine of the gas pump. You see what I mean? It's like a couple different ways to get momentum moving forward when it comes to things that trend, and it's almost always gamed or financed in a way that people would just be like, what? Like, that's how it works? And you'd be like, that's how it works. So because I came to this whole COVID discussion with so much of that back knowledge, when I saw what I was seeing, especially as I began to look into some of the science of it, that's when I'm like, oh, well, got it. Like, the science says one thing and the TV says something else. And all the TV uses is a hat that says, I trust the science. And people assume that is reflective of what that says without looking at that. But then I noticed that was true for every industry. Talk about the Bible. How many people, oh no, I trust. I trust. And ain't never read it, or can't back up what they trust with any references, right? This is no different there. And I've had good experiences and not so good experiences with plenty of Christian organizations and faith-based networks and things like this. And I don't necessarily have to get into too many details there, but enough to know that, humans have flaws and they are imperfect despite being capable of being the most lovely and wonderful beings on earth. So with that said, this brings me basically to 2020, which is where I really started to sink my teeth into how to tell people the truth. Because when it first kicked off, this was like, oh, okay, it's another false flag. It's going to blow over. Y'all don't get hyped. And then months went by and it's like, oh, wow, they're going for it. All right. Well, okay, guys, okay, like, let me tell y'all some stuff. Okay, this is what they're trying to do. Now, just listen to this. Now, surely by the time this vaccine come out, y'all gonna get it, okay? It's been a year. And the vaccine rolls out, and I'm thinking, there's no way, it's 99% survival. Like, come on, like, people gonna wait a little bit, right? They told us 18 months, 7 months ago. Like, don't y'all, like, anything? And then by come January, when it was like, oh, so-and-so I know got the vaccine, I'm like, why? Like, am I missing something? And I just remember being like, I honestly, I said that first video for me that went really, really big, I sat on it for almost a month.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to say it like, I was talking to the gentleman I had an interview with earlier today. I'm like, the trick is you have to be the one that goes up to assault victim and being like, yeah, the person you trusted, yeah, they just socked you in the eye, bro. Like, I'm sorry to tell you, that's the reason your eye hurt. Like, I know you can't see right now, and I'm not trying to hit you. I'm over here. But that guy that was your best friend, the guy who told you could ride in his clique, you can have the keys to his car, yeah, he just punched you in the face on TikTok with everybody. Like, you see what I'm saying? You have to break it to people that the thing that they trusted is the very thing that's putting them in the pickle they're in. And that's not an easy task to do. And so I said, it has to be done with a bit of charisma, a bit of nuance, a bit of patience, a bit of humor. It can't be too serious, but it can't be too jokey or it's not taken seriously. So how do I do this? And I recorded that thing and just kind of, I had a couple like bullet points that I just wanted to mention, but I just looked at the bullet and just riffed and then looked at the next bullet and riffed. And I couldn't imagine how many people really resonated with that. I had several people that are like, yo, you saved my mom's life. Like you help consider things that we just didn't know. And I excuse me.
It's all good.
I found that social media is it's a very, very powerful tool because like any tool, it can build or it can kill. A hammer will build you a house or crack the skull of your worst enemy. And it's the same hammer. And social media will connect you to functional medicine, chiropractic, naturopathic, solution-based doctors that will actually help you. Or it'll feed you propaganda. And it's the same iPhone. It's the same algorithm, technically. And it has everything to do, basically, with what ends up in front of your face at any given free moment. You have to sit and just flick your thumb or your finger. And so I realized that in order to help anybody, you gotta give them the facts, but you gotta coat it in some like drip. You gotta put some maple syrup on it and some Aunt Jemima's on it. And I started noticing that the war, if you will, because I do consider this a very big war, a spiritual war that's meeting the physical. But the war is so much more like, oh, I can grab the joysticks myself if I want to. It's a lot of people go through this like, well, come on, we need to rally or we need to do this or we need to protest. And it's like, yeah, okay, we do need to do those things. But how do all we need is like a decent majority. I didn't even think it has to be more. It needs to be more than 1% to actually just be like, And that energy, whether you're putting a mask on, whether you're lining up this, whether you're lining your kid up or anything like that, that energy is infectious. And the reason I find it so infectious is because it's the truth. I feel like the truth is just infectious no matter what. People have different worldviews, right? But when Jesus was walking around talking on the Mount of Olives, a couple thousand people showed up. They might have had something else to do that day, and there's some reason we still talk about it 20-some hundred years later. Like, I don't know why. Maybe there's something to it. But ask me how many inside jokes that you and your homie gonna be. How many people will be talking about that in 2,500 years? Or a little over 2,000 years. So this is why I have started to try to find these new strategic approaches in how I share what I share, because I realize that censorship is part of the dance. It's part of the thing that defines how you circumvent the fences that are set up to keep your arrows from ever passing your feet, and people find creative ways to do it. And if you find people like Zuby Music or Jimmy Levy or any of these like artists, they break through in this unique way. It's like, oh, okay, got it. You just got to sing it, and then you can say anything you want. Great. Even Brad Campbell is like, bust out that saxophone. Like, people will hear that, And I've had so many people that are like, yo, my mom was able to hear me out on this. She ain't believe me, but at least we had our first conversation because I showed her your video and she found you pleasant to watch.
And I'll be honest with you, man, like, I appreciate you sharing all that, because I think a big part of my podcast is really, I just want to know people. I want people to know people. We do long form because everything's so quick today, you know?
Yeah.
And when we rehumanize the process in this like very, very dehumanized state of the world, I think it becomes inarguable. You know, I'll be honest with you. We were talking about that before, like, I'm the doctor. You're not the doctor. It's like, no, actually, I share your videos, and I share your videos because when I speak, sometimes it goes over somebody's head. I use too many big words. I think, you know, like there's this, but your way of communicating, and I'm glad that you brought up Jimmy and Zuby, because their ways of communicating, it's almost like, because it's an art, like you're artists, you've mastered that ability to express what all of us are feeling in this moment in a way that just, penetrates the heart, penetrates your soul, but it offers that same effect, the same, like Jimmy performed at the Health, Freedom for Humanity Symposium. And dude, like they're playing it off an iPhone, right? And it starts ringing and he's just like, let's just go out and like, he just started singing. We're like, whoa, like that's the power of like music,
right.
One.
Music, yeah.
But it's the power of art.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Chiropractic, most people don't know this, is not just a science, because it is, but there's a philosophy. We always called it like a 3-pronged stool, where there's a philosophy, science, and art. And the philosophy is our worldview. The science is how we justify and prove it. And then the art is how we express it. Every single person who puts their hands on someone else, you can't walk in the same river twice, right? So when somebody puts their hand on someone else, they're like, well, it's not scientific because you can't reproduce. Like, yeah, but we have a magical effect on people because it's art. And so when you communicate, like, it's almost as if you already know the effect that you want to create. And then the way that you actually do it is like, it's a beautiful thing. And when you see that work, because for me, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know anything about Instagram. You asked my staff. I didn't want to do any of it because we just didn't care about social media. And at the end of kind of promoting into our first Heart of Freedom a year ago, Alex Zek was like, dude, I learned more in 15 minutes in talking to you than I probably learned in the last year. Like, you gotta share some stuff. And I was like, I don't even know what to do. He's like, dude, go on Twitter, screenshot it, and then share it, and then send it to me. And then it became this thing where he's just like, I was like, what do I share? He's like, whatever you, and then all it became was, patient just said something to me. That's something nobody ever talks about. And I just post it. But for me, there's not really an art to it because it's just like, okay, how can I fit this in a box, you know? But I think everybody has their lane and their lens and the way that they're going to penetrate people in the world. And I don't think it needs, I don't want it to be a professional distinction. I'm so glad that it's so grassroots, because that's just how it's going to change. That's how, you know, like you said, it's not the majority, it's the 1%. Right. And we know that it's just like, you could just be like, no.
Right. You can just be like, pass. Huh? Oh, I didn't hear you. You know, you could literally say anything like that. I'm good. Oh, I don't need that. Thank you. You need a, oh, no, I don't need it. Thank you, though. You know, it's like you are in control of your reality in the way. And so I find that what you said is very key. You said you don't consider it an art. It's just kind of the way you slice through life. So there's two things. The first thing is, I'm always saying everybody has a piece to the puzzle of the big picture. Nobody's piece, like in a jigsaw puzzle, every piece is important. The puzzle's not done until every piece is there. But is this piece better than this piece? Is it more important? Is it smarter? No, everybody's puzzle piece is important to the puzzle of what's really going on here. And in comedy, like when I did improv, the troupe that I was a part of for several years was one of the first things they had any of the new members do when I first joined it is read this book called Truth in Comedy. A lot of actors and theater majors and people of this type will be familiar with this book. But basically, the premise to this whole book is that life is actually the funniest thing, like just actual life, just actual reality is funnier than this hyperbolic make-believe. So improv in the best improv shows, especially if you watch like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Colin would always have everybody cracking Brady or any of the other staff, even Drew sometimes himself, because what they would do is just like get set up with this ridiculous claim and then be like, well, it's actually the cat that ate my homework. You see what I mean? Some really standard punchline that it just gets these crazy laughs for, syndicated for decades, because that's what's the funniest, just real life, just life. So in that same regard, your patient's asking you a question that's just like, nobody's asked. I don't really hear people talking about this. That is slice of life. And good art is capturing life in slices and putting it on the screen and calling it a photo or a video or a song, right? This is a war, right? Jimmy's song, our song, We Are Warriors. Yep. Separately, I mean, Jimmy and I talk regularly now, but I didn't know him for a very long time. And he had the premise to write that song separate from my wife and I having the premise to write We Are Warriors, because we both realizing this, we had war. Yes. And that's nobody else is singing about this, y'all. Like, what's happening? Y'all over there talking about popping bottles and like, what? First of all, bottles don't pop. You can pop the lid. Like, never mind. What's going on, man? The world is burning, and no art coming out of the mainstream is speaking to that really at all until just recently with the Let's Go Brandon thing. But even then, it took a year and a half for like any pop culture to really pop off, and even then, it's still just saying "F the president." You know what I mean? It's like, well, okay. Yes, but like let's turn our energy helping the people who we should care, which are down here, not up there on these pedestals, because half those people are miserable or involved in some really dark stuff that you don't even really want to know about.
That's something that I'm always interested in. Thank you for all of your inspiration, and thank you for letting it move you to who you have become. I'm always interested, though, also in this concept that void always leads to value, right? Like the darkness always will reveal the things that we're going to move towards in terms of light. I'm just curious from a very simple perspective, like what do you think one of the biggest challenges we face today?
The challenges in general, or with the COVID discussion?
I would say specifically, I mean, you just highlighted like there's almost like a trance that people are under,
Oh yeah, well,
on one end, like people are saying pop bottles, and then on another end, like we're actually in a war. Like I was just emceeing an event in Marietta the other day, and I've been saying this from the stage lately. I've been to Iraq. I don't know why I went. I'm beginning to learn a lot more. It's not what they said, but at the end of the day, I'm realizing that I literally, not figuratively, not symbolically, I fight harder today than I did when I was in Iraq.
Wow.
I study harder today than I did for my degree. And it's because I know that this is a full-on spiritual war for our kids and their kids. And if we don't stand up now, like, it's crazy, And so for me, I'm always curious, like through your slice and through your lens, what do you think the biggest challenges we are?
Challenge? So I think that the hardest challenge is to convey to everybody that all the things that we see as the future are actually the present, and the past was our future and the future is our present. And I'll explain what I mean by that.
Yeah.
And I worded it like that is because I think that we're much farther down this script than I think people realize. This whole transhuman script, this whole like computers replacing humans. And it was sold to us in my generation. I'm in my late 30s, just turned 37. It was sold to my generation because trigonometry and algebra and fractions and like computational math was seen as important by the time my parents were young. So devices that could help do that were better because those were the calculations that had to lift rockets to moons and build cars and build bridges and things, right? But prior to that generation, culture was swept in this way that was like the mind control and the challenge was different. I never forget hearing this story of a lady who was saying that her family was involved with a lot of esoteric and military and intelligence community practices when she was growing up. And she remembers having a microwave in her house for like 20 years before microwaves were ever brought out. She's like, my dad was involved with these defense research projects and these clandestine projects. And he, some of them they would allow out of the lab. And she just remembers as a child having a microwave oven like 15 years before the microwave oven ever hit. And then you learn more about the microwave, how it just destroys everything in food. And that was the generation before ours. It was removing and depleting nutrients from the earth and the soil and the food, culturally speaking. Where I'm feel like chicken tonight, shake and bake. What's for dinner, honey? Well, when I have a long day, I make Stouffer's stovetop, right? All the preservatives, MSG, all this stuff that the EPA, right? All this stuff in this stuff, not now that we know 40 years later. But this was setting up a cycle that really is being exploited today, I think. And that cycle is that we are at the cutting edge of science and technology, and that's simply not true. And as somebody who grew up basically as a nerd kid, I'm telling you, I look cool now. My hair look good now. You should have seen me an hour ago. But not when I was a kid. When I was a kid, it was pocket protectors. It was like, you guys, hi, can I sit next to you? Oh, okay, I guess I'll come sit over here. Anyway, I got this new TI-83 calculator. You can do parabolic, trigonometric calculation. I was that kid. And I remember being so fascinated with computers and just, you can save 4 megabytes, 4 million bytes. This floppy disk is only 1.4 million bytes. This is like 4 floppy disks in one, right? I was on the bleeding edge of consumer technology. But I'm realizing now that I've completely been cheated on. It's like the girlfriend that you trusted that broke your heart, the first love that broke your heart, right? Because I was like Erector sets and Legos, and then when I was older, it was N64s and Sega Game Gears, and then that turned into I want my own computer, and I'm going to college, and I'm like, I got my own PC, Dad. And I won my first Mac. It was just I was that kid, the nerd computer kid, and I realized something important. Every time I go over Auntie so-and-so house or Uncle so-and-so house, like, hey, you good with computers, right? Can you come fix my VCR? It's like, well, did you push the power button? Oh, well, look at that. You a genius. Like, no, I just turned it on. That's all I did. Or you go to the manual and it's like, plug the red cord into the red. It's like, you see. And so I realized that with this generation of technology, they leapfrogged basically everybody older than 15 or 20 at the time. And they told them, you don't really understand this, but that's okay. You can play solitaire or Minesweep or chess, or you like Mahjong, play that. In fact, you can see photos of your grandkids. And guess what? You don't even have to walk to the mailbox. You can get an email. Ooh, an electronic mail, right? This was all these novel concepts that most people bought into and had no clue how they work, like zero clue. Like if I said, if I text message you, hey, I'll see you on Zoom in 5 minutes, and I hit K, how does that K get from my phone, my eyeballs to your eyeballs? Like, can you explain that? You probably know. Yeah, you.
Somewhat, but not. I probably couldn't.
Right, you're smart. I'm not trying to put you on blast. I'm saying the average person doesn't really connect that.
No.
You're talking a software haptic screen that senses where my finger's located, translates that into code that applies the letter K with a little sound and a sound when you send the little text message. And then that translates into a wireless radio frequency signal that goes down to my router downstairs, which goes through a cable wire to my neighborhood server, or the house one that then goes to the neighborhood one, that then goes to the city one, that then goes to the regional relay, that then connects to a DNS server that says this URL is this IP address, and that IP address connects to a computer that connects to a fiber network that sends it all the way to California, where it reverses that whole process in under a second. Whoop! Pew! So, all right, we're talking like information from my hand to your hand in under a second through like 50 relay points, all based on light and electricity, which 0% of people know how it works. And I say zero, statistically zero, because not as many people as who are under age 5 that died from COVID, that's the same amount of people that know how this actually works. And I realized this is problematic, because when you have no clue how cars work and you're stuck out in the Mojave Desert, or Miracle, or that what they call Fire Alley or whatever, Death Valley, Death Valley. If you stuck out in Death Valley and you don't know how to operate a car, how safe are you really? How safe? I mean, get your AAA, get the AAA membership. It's gonna make you safe and effective. But you in Death Valley and your phone don't work, and it's 130 degrees. So how good is your safe? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like they have placed everybody in this incubated state of, you don't really need to know how any of this works. Let us figure it out. From healthcare, especially allopathic healthcare, because you know how that is. Like, oh, your kidney hurt. If it's not a ruptured appendix, then just take this and it'll be fine. And that take this is just an insurance policy to come on back for the next dose. Not so much because the doctor wants that, but because the doctor went to an educational system that probably favored that solution, since the people providing that pill were the same people that wrote that textbook.
Yeah.
And that was one of the big things that opened my eyes early on. We had a home birth with our daughter, and our midwife, we were talking with her, and I had just heard and seen some research that a lot of medical textbooks are written by pharmaceutical agencies or pharmaceutical companies. And she was like, oh yeah, no, that's the thing. Like I do medical textbook proofreading, and like it's like 4 companies, and they're all subsets of Merck or Pfizer or not BMS. What's the Bayer, the big one. And she was like, oh yeah, that's been a thing. And she's in her 50s, pushing 60 now. So when I'm putting all this down, packing it all into the blender, putting it on high and shaking it all up, what I find is that, to answer your question as a button point, the biggest problem facing the world today is nobody knows how anything works.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how anything actually works.
Nobody
knows how the body works.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how the spine works. Nobody knows how important the nerves in the spine are in relation to one another. Nobody knows how important sleep is. Nobody knows how an immune system works. Nobody knows what memory B and T cells are and how they relate to antibodies. So you can gain people, oh yeah, your antibodies. Antibodies. You know that word, antibodies. It's say anti, but it's a good anti. You like this anti word. Antibodies. And I took an antibody test and my antibodies don't work. Okay, who created the test? I don't know. How does the test work? I don't know. It's like if you're a mechanic and I say, this is a remote control that I'm going to take the batteries out of and put, diamond crystals inside of, and then this is a machine that's going to tell you a diagnosis wrong with your car. You stick it in, it doesn't work. I'm like, I guess that means your car is fine. I can tell you anything at that point if you don't know how this device works or how your car works. See what I mean? So nobody knows how anything works.
This morning, we do a huddle in our office, and I was just describing one of the analogies that I've been using lately with our patients, just because we see a lot of kids. And when you see a lot of kids, you see a lot of the injuries, like you talked about earlier. But parents know their kids. Parents know that their kids, 54% of them, that's 11-year-old study, probably paid for by some sort of company that skewed the numbers anyways. 54% of our kids have a chronic illness. Mm-hmm. And I tell parents, I'm like, hey, your kid's a puzzle, but there are people in power who want you to think that puzzles just happen. Like they just happen and there's no real cause to them. And so we don't really know what to do about it. They'll probably grow out of it. And you know what? Just come back next year. And if it's there, then we'll talk about it then. So there are people that actually don't recognize that they don't know what the puzzle looks like. They don't know how many pieces are. They don't know what the shape is. They don't know where the edges are. They don't. And there are industries in power that are basically keeping people, like you're saying, it's so complicated. We don't understand it. Like, but we can do all this science for how long? And this is a novel virus. It's like, but this virus is so deadly, but you can't isolate it. You know, because if the isolation process is too damaging to this virus, but it's obviously at the root of everything that all the decimation of life right now. It's like,
come on, y'all.
I think people are starting to see, like,
I'm so glad you mentioned that. They have mastered the deferrent, like the answer of defer. We don't really know. We don't know yet. We still looking into it. Oh, it's unconfirmed at the moment. Oh, why does VAERS say 18,000 deaths? Yeah, I see that. 18,000. That's more than 50, right? Yeah, no, that's more than 50. Okay. Yeah, now we're gonna look into it. They're unconfirmed as of now, but we waiting on confirmation. You gonna confirm it? Okay, you gonna confirm it? Okay, yeah, now we about to confirm it. And then once we confirm it, it's confirmed.
Well, no.
You see what I'm saying? They never have to answer the question. My whole thing is like, okay, this is the thing that really puzzles me. We know this whole guy ate a bat in China story is some literal actual horse species. Like actual horse species. Don't even, like, they tried to pull the AIDS monkey thing and it halfway worked until it didn't. And then people forgot that was a thing and then it didn't work. And then, oh yeah, a guy ate a bat in China. And people have been eating bats my whole life, but today this bat shut the world down. And then once that was like, it's a conspiracy, a wild and unbiased conspiracy theory to suggest this leaks from a level 4 bioweapon lab that the NIH website says, we would like to thank you. I mean, Anthony Fauci is up there in Congress like, we did not. I vehemently reject the idea that I funded gain of function studies, and I resent what you're insinuating. And it's like, well, how come I'm on the NIH website and this is thank you for the gain of function? It's like it says gain of function in the thank you.
Let's change the definition of gain of function. We
just changed it based on this new definition that we just updated today. I'm telling the truth. It's just like, and then this, like, the fact that a liar lies is almost like you expect that. Mm-hmm. But what I don't expect is for literally no one to actually bring that up ever again. So we know it wasn't no bat pangolin China, wet market situation. And okay, it leaked from a bio. That was a lab leak theory. But get the vaccine. Like, so no, let's go back to how we got in this in the first place, because if this lab leak theory pans out, which, a lot of us thought it kind of did since all the paper trail is there, then it's a bit problematic for me if the same guy lying about that is also the co-developer of Moderna's vaccine. And that's the one they love leaving off. Are you familiar with the Moderna vaccine being an NIAID joint venture?
No.
Okay, I didn't know this until like 3 or 4 months. I was reading some unrelated article in the New England Journal of Medicine, and it was from the beginning of the pandemic, and they literally said the Moderna NIH vaccine. And I said, what? And then I'm looking, and it goes, the Moderna vaccine was co-developed with the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases subgroup called the Vaccine Research Center. So there's the NIH, and then there's NIAID, which is Fauci's group. And then within that group is a VRC, the Vaccine Research Clinic or Center or whatever. And that is the maker of the active ingredient in Moderna. So not the adjuvant, not the water is swimming around in. The active ingredient, okay? And the active is under the same umbrella as the guy who just lied about funding the thing that leaked that caused the problem. And nobody's gonna question it. Like nobody, like not a single comedian, none of y'all. Like, that's the part that blows my mind, is that they have mastered saying, we'll get back to you. And then nobody who knows how to ask a single question that could save humankind is allowed to even be within 10 feet or one FaceTime screen away from this dude. They just don't let him have access to anybody who has the real questions. Because like a Bill Gates or anyone, you sit them in a room with somebody who know what they're talking about. And they're just gonna be like, listen, I'm not a politician. All right. If I ask you, Rochelle Walensky, how many people at the CDC are fully vaccinated, I'm not asking you what your treatment protocol is. And we plan to, I didn't ask you that, Rochelle. I asked you how many people are fully vaccinated. If you ask me how many people in my house, I'm gonna give you a quantifiable number. I'm very sure of it. You direct the very agency that's supposed to preside over these things. Act, Rochelle. And I'm sitting looking at I don't watch TV, but I'm looking at these clips like, Rochelle, pretend. Just lie. You lie about everything else. Just at least lie better. Like they ain't even got somebody who can lie well. It's like, like I don't really know that number. So you didn't get the questions that they was gonna ask you, right? I'm over here just doing like press for some indie film, and they email me the question. I'm doing podcasts with Dr. Homie, and I get the question, but you the director of the CDC, and you didn't get the question. And nobody on your team was like, yeah, maybe and I don't knows aren't the best answer in this climate where you're trying to reduce vaccine hesitancy from y'all's point of view. It just is like, who is directing this movie? This theater production sucks. Like, get a new
terrible movie.
It's a terrible movie. It's not even a B movie. It's terrible. It's terrible. It's
so crazy. I think one of the biggest challenges is I have a patient that works for Bronner. So right, you probably saw like the coercion of $1,000 or whatever if they get the shot. Bronner soap. But she told me today that they're 78% uptake. And I was, wow. Bronner soap, Bronner soap, the label with like all one, like the spiritual label and all the things about like where a country came from and like the multi-generations of soap and like going against Monsanto and no GMOs, but more GMO humans.
Right. It's like, where is the disconnect? Where is the connect, bro?
Yeah.
It's wild to me. This is how I know we're in spiritual war, because it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It just doesn't make any large, like, put it like this. It makes perfect sense in the context of we're in a psychological war, a spiritual war that's got a psychological battle happening at the forefront of it. That makes perfect sense when you approach it from that standpoint. But from the standpoint that they telling everybody, and well, we all supposed to just be assuming that this world's supposed to be working like, I know I'm not a psychic or some sort of clairvoyant. I don't have special powers. I could just look around me. I'm like, how do y'all feel like this? Do you feel like the math is helping? Do you feel like it's helping? You feel healthier with it on. You can't breathe, but do you feel like you're better? Like, if you don't actually feel better, then you're not better. Like, how many doctors how many people in your profession like, doctor, I feel worse. Well, you're actually doing better. Like, your body is better than it was last checkup, despite the fact that you feel worse. Like, that doesn't compute in medicine or allopathic or otherwise. And here we are in this world.
I think you do this very effectively, powerfully, beautifully, but I'd love for you to verbalize it. Like, what would you say is your big purpose, your big purpose that you're working on right now?
Right now, I honestly think my purpose I'll break some. I'll tell you my honest answer, because I like these types of questions, but I'll give you a little bit of a insight, sneak peek as to what I'm trying to Hail Mary a little bit to the future. I fully believe that the powers that be have a lot in the works for us in terms of like new thresholds to be crossed in order to gain the trauma acceptance necessary to encroach upon one's free will that would never happen if the trauma were not present. Lockdowns were a form of that. Masking is a form of that. Vaccinations are a form of that. It's particularly since they don't actually help, right? So there's certain traumas like lifting weights, right? These traumas help you get better, but it is ripping your muscles, your fibers at the core. It's like breaking something to strengthen something. You break a horse to strengthen a horse Right. So there are what I consider righteous applications to this and very unrighteous applications to this. And right now we're living through one of the most unrighteous applications. So I do believe that my purpose at this time in this juncture with these skills that I've acquired and this voice that I've been given is to simply help people see the lie and the truth clearly enough to make an honest, informed choice before it's too late for their personal soul/body. And I carry who knows, maybe I'm a corner piece of the puzzle. I'm the yellow center of the starry-eyed night sun or some, iconic piece in the puzzle. That's, again, no more important than the rest of the other puzzle. But I do feel like I've been given this strange ability to just synthesize a lot of data in a communication style that cuts past a lot of barriers of like entry, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I feel that I want to help people. I'm about to put together what I call an apocalypse package, just a game, honestly, like a downloadable zip, like a giant file of a bunch of small compressed songs, books, PDFs, artwork, just things that people can use to break apart the matrix that helped me break apart the matrix. Because the COVID discussion is just one. I speak a lot about that because literally it's the thing on every person in the world's mind. But this was happening. I knew this was going to pop off starting in late 2015. That's when I first became aware of this. And it was presented to me as a financial change. That person was straight up. They were like, and I speak a bit candidly because I feel like I don't have to protect this particular individual as much anymore. But they pretty much told me they were one of the people I knew who was connected to Trump. And this was before Trump was even president. And I knew 3 people connected with him, one of whom I grew up with, one of whom I didn't meet until 2017, who was a politician, and one of whom was a lady who worked with him on Miss America and like the pageant stuff. She was like a wardrobe stylist, and she was wardrobe styling a shoot that I was directing. And we were both like, oh, wait, you used to work with him? Like, what was that like? And she was telling me all her stories. So again, they all told me the same baseline thing, but what the guy who I grew up with told me is that this is a new financial system coming in. It's an entire overhaul to the world's financial system, and the public will know about it in 10 or so years. And he told me this in 2015. And I remember at the time being like, you really think it's going to take that long? Like, I don't know, man. It just seems like everything's about to crumble. Mm-hmm. But as I'm learning now, 6 years later, to really overhaul something, you have a ton of destabilization has to happen, like a ton of it. And I remember hearing around the fall, I guess, of last year, when back to school of 2020 happened, and basketball teams were starting to play and kids sports were starting to kick back up. And I'm friends with 2 high school basketball coaches. And they're like, bro, it's crazy. Like, this conference doesn't allow masks, but this conference won't play without masks. These parents on this team won't want this, but these don't. So we had to cancel like 4 games. And now the rules at these schools are that scouts are not allowed to come. So now college scholarships. And I just remember being like, this is how you have to do it. Like, this is how you break everything. It's like the infrastructure, every little wire has to snap. Everyone, not just like, oh, a tsunami hit Wall Street and whatever. Literally everything has to break. You go to the fast food restaurant, a local burger joint or whatever. Due to staff shortage, we have limited hours. Due to coin shortage, we got to use exact change. Due to supply chain shortage, you ain't got no burgers, no chicken nuggets, no wing. It's like, that's what has to happen. You have to see the coin shortage. You have to see everything just like, you have to see it all just like crumble. And then it's like the social acceptance that happens that almost gives into it. Not necessarily, right? I'm not speaking so defeated as if we can't change things.
Yeah.
But you know how this works. It's like the basketball team can win if they just make the shots and show up and play defense. You know what I'm saying? The game's not over till the game's over. It's like nobody has written this game on the wall already. It's not over till it's over. But if some of y'all don't put y'all sneakers on and get into the game, like y'all are on the court taking a nap, y'all getting ran over. And I really look at this like when he told me that thing way back then, all they knew was that some sort of social global cataclysm would be the smoke screen for the change. That's all they did. They didn't know nothing about virus. It wasn't anything specific. And then when COVID kicked off, I remember thinking, surely this can't be it, because this doesn't seem scary enough. 99% of people survive it. It's just in China for the most part. Oh, it's not airborne. Oh, it is airborne. Oh, it's not. Is it right here? I'm in Southern California. Did it make it all the way over from the Diamond Princess cruise ship way up there? Like, where is it? Does anybody know? Oh, Trump didn't shut down travel soon enough, so now it's his fault. Okay. How about what my homie told me 5 years ago seems to be going off right now? And another thing he told me was that Trump had already been changing his money over at the time. And so this is why, for me, I'm very non-political. Now, I can have political discussions, and I actually like the fact that I'm right in the referee position, right in the middle, because I can go and talk with my conservative friends and be like, listen, let's talk about Donald Trump. I don't get emotionally triggered over the dude, but I didn't vote for him. I don't like him. It's like I recognize he was a hustler before the election, so I just opted not to vote for the hustler or for anybody, because the other lady was a hustler witch too, and both of y'all was getting hustled. And so I was fortunate to just kind of take this, like, I'm sitting on the Wimbledon sidelines just watching this tennis match go back and forth, and that's what allowed my emotions to stand up. So when I'm living in Los Angeles and I'm dealing with very liberally minded individuals, some of these people are my best friends, and I get along with them wonderfully, and we can talk politics because we can call out the ridiculousness of Donald Trump too. Like, we all saw his tweets. So I find it like the politicization of everything is part of the smokescreen. It's part of the good cop, bad cop. It really is. And then you got the Gavin Newsom disappearing act, and you got all these different things that are like this man is not sincere. Like, on top of the fact that he's not sincere, none of y'all have been schooled on how the world actually really works. So y'all like, oh, the president, he's gonna go. Oh, they had his hands tied. He tried, but they wouldn't let him do it. He needed 4 more years. And you've heard it on Obama's side, and on Trump's side, and on Bush's side, and on Clinton's side, and on Carter's side, and on Reagan, everybody. So I'm fine. So what I see that it's been the thing that has to be undone, and what I'm trying to help people do is say, listen, half the doctors I know are abandoning the things that they learned in medical school to learn how to actually help people. Most of the good ones anyway. Half the actual, theologians I know are like questioning some of the stuff seminary taught them to investigate history and the historical record and the roots of the things that we all believe in. Half the people who are educators are questioning, is sitting some kid in some class and making them memorize something the best way to actually indoctrinate somebody or teach somebody? Which one? So every industry, the difference is just that teachers don't carry the prestige and the white coat of a doctor. And you see that golden picture on my wall that has a script on it. You see that funny font? That's calligraphy. You see that? And that's my name right there. You see that prestige. And again, not every doctor has this, but a decent amount do. Or even if they don't carry the chip on their shoulder, they like the plaque there, and they don't want to say nothing that's going to get the medical board to come snatch the plaque down. So they don't say anything while the Titanic is sinking. They don't say anything while the Auschwitz chambers are firing up, and mostly because it's like, I was talking with a doctor about this the other day. I'm like, consider how difficult it really is to say that the concrete foundations on which my practice is built is complete deception and sham. Now, again, you can say the same thing for religion. You can say the same thing for education. You can definitely say the same thing for finances. And as somebody who came from the entertainment industry, take my word, you can say the same thing for Hollywood. but it's not easy. It took me 3 years of just sitting and doing looking like that Pablo Escobar meme from Narcos, where you're just like sitting in a swing, like looking, staring in a field, like looking straight. Especially my wife too, right? Because she's a singer. She comes from Sweden. She does some big TV shows. She has some couple big placements. And then we realized, this industry that y'all was really finding success in, this is based on the devil's cousin's playbook.
Wow.
He got from the devil himself, and it just is hard. It's not easy. And it takes enough. I mean, we didn't have kids at the time. So for us, it was okay. Just like, okay, I don't care if I'm broke next month. I just can't. I need to shut the world off for a second. And so that is a grieving process. And a lot of people don't have the time or the bandwidth to go through that when you got 5 kids, but like, what's for dinner? And you trying to figure out how to make it to your job that's requiring a mandate. And, I get it. I understand. I really do. But it's like, I can sugarcoat it. I can deliver it with the bumper lanes up on the bowling alley. I can put a lot of grease and lube on it. I just can't not tell you that you're being punched in the face by the bully. The bully is snatching your lunch money, and you're like, well, maybe I'll just give him half my lunch. Maybe I'll give him this arm. Okay, this arm. You're actually considering compromising to the bully, and the bully is just like, yeah, we ain't isolating. Yeah, I know we told you it came from China. Do that in a bad, but maybe it came from a lab, and maybe we funded it, maybe we did. We're not going to actually investigate it. We're just going to leave it at a maybe. And how dare you question it? You're anti-science. And Scott, Bourla, the Pfizer CEO, is criminal. People who spread vaccine information are criminal.
Punch him in the face.
Right. That's just like him going, pfft. Yeah, I know we paid $4 billion because we lied, but we're not lying now. That's what they're doing. That's literally what they're doing. People are like, oh, okay, let me go get my booster. My face hurts. It's like, my face hurt. I need a booster. Botox sound with B and booster is B. Okay, that's B. I like that word. It's like a butt cheek. Okay, I'm going to get a booster.
I think that's crazy, right? Because it's on every level.
Mm-hmm.
The people in those industries have to recognize that the foundation is not there. It's not just not there. They've been duped, and they've been duped by the bigger players pulling the puppet strings. But then the consumer also has to recognize that, man, I keep walking to this line and I keep getting punched in the face.
Right.
But the only thing I really know is to get back in line, because it's the only line, and I'm supposed to be in line to get whatever it is, but it's actually just a punch in the face, and on both levels, you have to go through this, like you said, this like grieving process to actually get to the other side. You have to go through it. You can't avoid it. You can't not reconcile that this is what they told me I'm actually getting punched in the face, and you have to bridge that gap, or else
you will keep getting punched in the face, or else you will then start justifying the punches. That's the crazy part.
The question I have is, and I've heard this multiple times, I haven't done the research that you have, which is why we're talking, but your buddy said 10, 20 years, and it's been 5 or 6 years.
No, he said 10. He said in about 10 years, maybe 15. Yeah. But yeah.
So it's a little bit longer, right? And that's something that I've been sensing, because at the same time, like for me, I didn't take it serious. I didn't take it serious at all. I don't know this background. I do know pharma. That's the one thing that I do know. And I'm starting to learn everything else. But I was like, worldometers, right? I don't know how accurate it is, but I'm like, man, that recovery rate is awesome. Like just look at, you get what you focus on. So like, yeah, death, yeah, cases, like mild cases, recovery. This is a terrible bioweapon. This is this is an
awful bioweapon.
This is awful because now I think it's too early. Yeah. I think, do you think it might have been like a false start?
I think they've got
that instability.
Yes, but they pivot, because keep in mind, this is an active fluid war.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think that they, like, I really at this point think that influenza was the practice, and this whole like Every year there's a flu strain. It's exacerbated not only by the inoculation, but by the chemtrailing. Like when I really got into the atmospheric geoengineering program, it's like, okay, got it. They're terraforming the earth. They're literally spraying anything that they want, and through electromagnetics are manipulating that for multiple purposes. That's clearly the easiest vector. One airplane can cover a whole state in tic-tac-toe lines in a couple hours. That's obviously what you do when you want to infect somebody. The biggest thing I learned is that this government and these intelligence agencies in this shadow situation are control freaks, bro. Control freaks. They want to control you because they're control freaks. So they don't let things just leak out of a lab and then hope they actually get even calling it the lab leak theory. I didn't think it was a leak. It's like, are you kidding me? Things don't leak out like this. And my whole thing is like the timing of it proves that they don't leak. There've been multiple leaks that have been contained that have probably had a lot more severe, diseases associated with them. But this is not how leaks really work, really. Plus, the whole shut up for a year. And then, BuzzFeed just asked the government, the Freedom of Information request. Hi, we're BuzzFeed. That news organization. Because I've been to BuzzFeed. The thing, BuzzFeed tried to hire me. And I was like, yeah, I didn't. That was like later in my time in LA, and I got a little glimpse of their corporate culture. And I was like, it's cool. I'm thankful for the offer, but I don't want to work here. Not for a writer, but for some video stuff. And so imagine my surprise when BuzzFeed is the one that finally gets Fauci's emails released. And I just looked at it all like, come on, y'all. This is a corny script. Like, BuzzFeed, really, BuzzFeed? Come on, y'all. Just BuzzFeed. I'm BuzzFeed. Please, can we see your email? Well, they did ask, and it is BuzzFeed. So here you go. The things that will find the leader of the free world's medical establishment culpable in crimes against humanity. Here you go. And then nobody even talked about it. That was the crazy part. It's like they actually went through with it and nobody talked about it. So there was a reason I tangented off to this story. We were talking about what my friend said about the 10 years, and if I thought the money was the finance thing.
For me, what
it was the question that you said that sparked.
I asked was basically, what do you think there's like a false start?
That's right.
Too soon. You said it was more of a fluid thing. Totally get that, right? Like they have 50 plays moving forward, if not more than that. And
I think it was a false start because they underestimated certain things and overestimated other things. I think they overestimated how convincing the propaganda would be and how much the fear trauma would work. Because the biggest thing about when I learned MK Ultra and how that whole curriculum, and people know MK Ultra from the popular aspect, like, LSD and mind control. It was 66 different techniques combined in a training program. Wow. A quarter of them were hypnosis based, a quarter of them were drugs based, a quarter of them were trauma based, and a quarter of them were conditioning or just repetition based. So the trauma component of that involves things like starvation and like physical electrocution and this really insane stuff. So the whole premise, and when one of the books that I read early on that explained this was basically saying the concept comes out of the Nazi training manual, but when applied to an individual, it creates a trauma so strong that they encounter what they call pleasure pain reversal through the conditioning, where they associate a bad thing that the programmer wants to program as bad to a good feeling, and vice versa. Or to for example, if they want you to not drink water for whatever reason, they would have you guzzle water while electrocuting you, and then have you go for a day and a half, and then give you bread or some Gatorade as a reward for going so long without the water, so that over time the neurons in your brains like refigure through your emotional connections to literally find pleasure in the things that hurt you and find pain in the things that help you. I like people being crippled to ask for help when asking for help is the very thing you need to do. So when you apply this in a more mild or broad sense, this is what they've been doing. So I knew that the trauma in the sheer trauma alone was what was required to actually get anybody moving forward. New York was traumatized for this.
Yes.
When people dying, all this stuff was trauma. Plus, 18 million people in like a block and a half, right? California, Los Angeles, traumatized. San Diego, a little less so. Willacoochee, New Mexico, probably less so. Scranton, Pennsylvania, or South Dakota, they're like, what coronavirus, right? And so the uptake is lower, the compliance is lower, the masking is lower, the social distancing is like whatever, because the trauma was not as strong. That's the only reason. There's nothing to do with the virus or the deadliness, because we all know it ain't that deadly. And if it was really that worry, you would have just stayed home and Instacarted or Grubhubbed it. So because I do consider them doing a little bit of a misstep, but I just think that their misstep was unilaterally applying the trauma from their perspective, because they missed too many pockets that weren't LA and New York. There's too many millions of people that just was like, I'll take my chances. The part that they, I think, did right, that I was told actually by somebody connected with an individual affiliated with one of these agencies, is that they underestimated how much force would be needed to get people to be obedient.
Yeah.
Tanks we saw moving across the train lines last year, they ain't had to use a single one of them because people just did what they was told. And I was told, assumed people wouldn't do what they were told as easily, and that they would need to use more like overt measures. I guess they were like, we're either going to have to use brute force or psychology, but either way, we're getting what we want. And the psychology worked. So this is why I think the game ain't over. The show ain't over till the fat lady singing, and the fat lady is on a detox right now. So she might not even be fat by the time it's her time to sing. And I think that we're seeing movements in like music and, so like the biggest curveballs ever was this Nicki Minaj situation, the Eric Clapton situation. And if we're still seeing what we're seeing with this Gavin Newsom situation, that would be the curveball. Listen, you can war game and strategy and rehearse and plan and Jade Helm and cyber polygon and dark Operation Dark Winter all you want, but ain't no practicing that Nicki Minaj is gonna get bored one day and tweet out to 147 million people that she ain't really trying to get this vaccine because her cousin got it and went impotent. You see what I mean? It's like you can't practice for that. You can't practice that maybe a California governor got it and it, didn't go so well. And in my mind, I'm thinking, because I want to know what your thoughts are on the Newsom situation, but I'm literally like, okay. I don't know if you saw Janny, Janny organically or Janny post on it was so she said exactly what I was thinking without saying it. She's like, listen, I'm not going to speculate on what the Newsom situation is, because they do this stuff all the time where they pull some switcheroo and leak some information out through some back channel, and then people in this community talk about it, and then they later discredit it or use it to discredit the community. And I've seen that happen with the Pfizer protocol thing, with several different things. And I'm like, I'm not going to comment on it. But all he had to do was just be like, this is me on the toilet. I'm fine. Like literally anything, a toenail, a old photo, like anything, like literally anything. How would we know that it wasn't 2 weeks ago if he was like, hey, it's me, Gavin, I'm fine. But they didn't even do that. His wife sends out this cryptic tweet. Can a person just have kids? Like, I mean, yeah, but like, is that really the best thing? And the PR lady was like, oh, delete that. Like, why'd you do that?
Are you in California? Because he was on TV every day, multiple times a day, never missed a beat.
Oh, really?
No, he do press conference almost every day.
See, then how does a whole?
It's impossible. Like, I have no concept of it. Sorry, you're gonna say something.
I was just gonna say, how does a whole trend start wondering where Gavin Newsom is? Well, you have like official like New York Times columnists and like big journalists being like, "Yo, where is Gavin Newsom?" If he's like on TV every day, this goes to show just how much of a controlled like plaything I think that this really is, and how psychological it is. Mm-hmm. Because somebody at Children's Health Defense got word that he had GBS. I mean, Children's Health Defense, I'm a fan of that publication. I am. So I, don't think that I know they do their homework on basically everything else. So I don't think that they would run with the story if they didn't feel like it was credible. But it's like, what are we looking at then? Like, was that his hand twitching? Like his hand wasn't moving a bit at that one press conference. Do we really want to get in the discussion of clones and body doubles? Because I know some folks who know some folks, you know what I mean? So,
That's what I was thinking. I was like, is it taking time to is he hard to reproduce? Is he one of the hard ones? Like
they can do them in a day and a half. Yeah, he ain't nothing special. He looking about as plastic as a Ken doll. So I have nothing for that man. There was so much about the state of California that was run to the ground municipally before COVID. And you like, I'm gonna shut your utilities off because you giving me COVID and you in LA and I'm in Sacramento. It's like, bro, come on now. That's like, you're obviously in a pissing match with Cuomo to be like NWO Apprentice 2.0 or whatever. But you can, that just really, I lost a whole lot more respect than I already had lost for him when the whole French Laundry situation came out. And then he's like, I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And my brother made the comment. He was like, bro, if you mute this, it looks like a stand-up comedy routine. Like he's doing a bit like, all right, so here's the thing. I walk into a bar, right? I do. I walk into a bar.
50th birthday.
Right. He's just smiling and it's this insincerity. And you can see it, right? It's like, I think that this is one thing that I think is also problematic. We've lost this trust in our gut feeling because we've lost the barometer for what a gut feeling should be or what it shouldn't be or what having a solid gut even feels like with food that's nutritious and a vagus nerve that's actually connecting to our brain. You know what I mean? It's like we're so far removed. We're so, there's radio frequency interference for enough decades. When the bag phones and the Motorola StarTex was out, and then you had the little interchangeable faceplate Nokia for the Razor came out, and eventually the iPhone. It's like these, they already hit us with a lot of electromagnetics, and people have no clue how computer driven everything is and how much and one thing, even being from a fan of computers, I was not up on quantum computing at all until very recently. And now that I'm learning about what quantum computing is and what the actual big heavy hitters in the quantum computing space claim about their own computers, it's like, oh yeah, this is about to flip. So when my homie said 10 years from 2015, keeping in mind we're pushing 3 years essentially from that date. And I look at the 10-year time frame as when the new system is established and going, meaning a lot breaks between now and then. And I just find that because so few people know how so few things work, and I'm not excluding myself from that either. I'm learning farming, gardening. I'm trying to learn how to start how to filter food and compost. These are the things that I'm realizing. Even that is setting us up for this. Even the fact that if the power shuts off right now, all right, well, we got a flashlight somewhere. Where's the flashlight? I think it's in the drawer downstairs. Oh wait, which drawer? Where's it? I think we got some candles. I can use my iPhone light. Okay, iPhone. Okay, where's the? Okay, oh, I'm almost out of battery. Okay, let me plug in the charger. Oh wait, the power's out. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We have gotten prepared over the last few years a little bit more, but you would have to find a skill set that would not put you in a mental state of desperation or panic so that you could be helpful for your family and your neighbors and friends around you who actually might need help. And so I'm realizing I got to learn how stuff works. I have to learn how systems work, and you can apply this concept to both intellectual systems, technical systems, functional systems like bodies and spines and nerves and energy systems, like the Shia chakra system or whatever. That's like a thing. Like people, it affiliates and associates with religious practices or spiritual practices or esoteric or more metaphysical practices, but it's not off the discussion table when it comes to how bodies work. And allopathic medicine would just have you just, if it ain't a number that come from Pfizer or Merck or Bayer, then I don't know what to do with that type thing. So I really look at this season that we're in, and I just say we all have this unique puzzle piece to really like help click with our neighbors and with our friends and our relatives to say, listen, this is what I know. What do you know? Share with me what you know, because at the end of the day, humanity as it exists is more important than any political party, any financial platform. And the way it was set up to me is that behind the scenes, it isn't a one unified front either. So you have a literal Settlers of Catan type battle happening where, oh, I own all the iron ore and you own all the wood. Well, I'm just about to burn all your wood up and get my railroad, my road or whatever that I need. And that's what's happening. And they're treating like whole countries of people like assets at a monopoly, to like chips in a backgammon game or whatever. So people have to just like, it will get better, but I do think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I really hope that people, their 5 to 11-year-olds suffer a completely avoidable cardiovascular disease or neurodegenerative disease or musculoskeletal disease or neurological disease because of some propaganda, when they had 2 years to figure out the lie and they still didn't figure it out. And so I'm trying to always, use compassion. I get, they get on my nerves a little bit sometimes, but like, I can't take it, y'all too dumb. Like, figure this out. Like, y'all, it's hurting me to tell y'all that y'all still getting tricked after this time. Because I don't like telling y'all getting punched in the face, but here I go again. You're getting punched in the face. All right. Now they want to punch your kids in the face and in the ovaries and in the heart muscle. So please don't let them punch these babies. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. It's like they convince you a virus that did an unprecedented thing, like avoiding kids for a year and a half, is now, it's like, now is all kids are getting affected. It's just like, so, I really look at this whole solution, why I'm here, how we can work together, how any of us can kind of just become the vessels of truth and of light and of love and of God, really, to help not everybody, just 100, just 12, just 24, 144, 12 times, just like a tribe, a posse, a crew. And that crew has a tribe, a posse, a crew that goes on and spreads this information to more people. And then we all learn. And, soon the COVID discussion will pale in comparison, I think, to the financial discussion. But it has to look like, oh, this was COVID's fault. It was COVID's fault. But it was a 99% survival rate. And for most people, it was like less deadly than the flu. So is COVID's fault, really? Or was there something else going on? And I think people will see, a lot of people will get it. I just really don't want people to be sitting in no FEMA camp or no like bad situation out in the cold where they're like, I should have just. I got it. Somebody sent me, a friend of mine in Los Angeles, an actress who is under a lot of pressure to receive this vaccine for her career, and who doesn't want to. She sent me a video of a lady who claims to be a CDC whistleblower. I had not heard this lady, but she was basically saying how, what you're looking at is a DARPA operating system being put in people. And I've heard her say this, and Catherine Austin Fitts, this other lady who used to work under the Bush campaign, but in finance and stuff, come out and explain it like an operating system. And that was the same computer minded approach that I applied to what I was learning. And I just remember, I remind people all the time, when the iPhone first came out, who knew what to do with it? When a PC first came out, right? It was just like, what do I paintbrush and like Minesweeper, and then what else? Like, what do I do? Like, what's a website? Okay, angelfire.com/Stanton Hom. Oh, look, waving flags. Oh, look, 2 torches with a brick background. How nice, right? And then eventually systems get adapted into industries, and now who can even work without a computer? I'm 37. That's not even been 15 years since that was a novel thing to now. And then the iPhone comes out and it's like, what is it? A phone, an iPod? You can't, the internet's so slow on that thing. And then here we are now with 13th iteration 5G, and it can do 1,000 things. You can film in ProRes Max and 4K and 3 cameras and LiDAR sensors. Like, okay, got it. So they're hustling us with this technology, and the paperwork and paper trail exists at the Defense Advanced Research Project Association, or whatever their acronym is working on a biological operating system. And people don't know what to make of that because they don't even know what an operating system is and what that means. And I look at this and I'm like, can they pull that off? I mean, I guess so, but I think that's what this vaccine push is seeing if it works. Like, we don't know if it works, but we're pretty sure it does. So how about all y'all take it and let us know? Oops.
It's not just about all the diseases that it causes and the people that die. It's actually the people that live.
Right. Yeah.
And what their systems will do. And
right. Exactly. And how to work out the kinks with the microgram dosage and with the clandestine ingredients. All right. He was like on the earnings call. I don't know if he let it slip or he just said that they sourced 109 or 119 ingredients from like 100 different countries, or 105, something like that, different countries. Did you hear him say this?
Yeah.
Uh-oh, you there? Did it freeze?
I can hear you. Yeah.
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Good.
Did you hear the Pfizer or about the Pfizer CEO when he mentioned ingredients? Okay, so when people go to Google ingredients of the mRNA, okay, it's 8 things: cholesterol, lipid, mRNA. That little mRNA got like 99 things in it that you don't know where they come from. And oh my gosh, I was just looking this up today because the lady mentions the luciferase.
Yeah,
the person I was talking to was like, I don't know what is that. I'm like, listen, I didn't name it that. They did. All right. So I don't know what to tell you other than they knew what they were saying when they named it this. I'm pretty sure it doesn't sneak past 100 people and legal. Mm-hmm. And just, you know what? That didn't occur to me that this would seem lucifery. It's like the joke is on the recipient at this point. And so I'm really trying to make a lot more people a lot not the butt of the joke. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of projections and a lot of assumptions that things could get a lot worse than they are. And I try to keep a positive outlook on it because I truly think that your reality is like, we have to start to almost like detach our personal reality and future from America, from the world. Why? Because as we're coming to learn, it's fractured to a giant degree already. So what goes for me ain't necessarily going for you across the board, good or bad. But at the same time, there are millions of people who aren't buying this lie. Yeah. And for their lives, it might as well just be as regular as every other day if they're walking outside in their community and they're not on social media or on CNN 24/7. They don't even really have to exist in a world where there is a pandemic, practically speaking, yet they live right in the heartland of America. And I learned that when I left LA and I was driving out, when we moved to the East Coast, it was very much like, as soon as you got out of LA, no masks, no signs, no distancing, no stickers in the stores, none of that. And I just remember being like, but this the same America that they dealing with over there. That's also America. So you can't say it's going this way because America is about to be ununited. That's what I think. And I really think that there will be realities moving forward for people where there is communities, breakout communities that emerge that are just like, screw all y'all. We're going to be over here healing people, helping people, feeding people, because this is what we do. And then there's going to be other people that are just like, I'm on my 9th booster. I lost 2 legs on my 6th and 7th booster, but at least I didn't die of COVID. Right. And it's just like, at least you didn't. Right. I don't know what to tell you at this point.
I know our compassion levels are going to have to like be like exponentially higher than they've ever been, because it's like wonderful, you got into a little bit. I'd love for you to just maybe future pace that world a little bit more, especially through the lens of I would say the success of the work and the vision and the purpose that you're on, like people realize they're being punched in the face. That's the first step. You know, maybe this is play number 50 of 5,000 and you know, there's a lot more tyranny on our way, which obviously is true, but what do you think that world looks like?
It's a fork right now. It looks very different depending on which side of the fork you're on. So on my side of the fork, I think the world looks like entire states that act as nation states, entire countries in some contexts that behave as vassal states, like indigenous states. Because this is what I'm learning. The fork is really like this: synthetic or natural. Think of just farmers. Think of allopathic versus chiropractic care. One is hands, pressure, energy, water, weight, balance, plyometrics, isometrics. Like these, like, you know, there's no like, where do I buy exercises? Right. You see what I'm saying? There's a store for that. But the other flip side of that is remdesivir, ventilators, you know, just machines and chemicals and machines, synthesis as opposed to photosynthesis. So in this fork, I see the one path very much going back to a natural way of living. What's going to happen is the other side is going to give in propaganda that these people are all feral and hating life and miserable and probably dead and cold and zombie-like, when the true reality is that these people are going to be like, yo, this is the community I've always wanted. Like, these are my best friends. Like, we don't even want to go on the internet. We don't care that we don't have access to the internet anymore. We don't care that the government Soylent Green doesn't come to our, you know, Matchbox that we pay like our DNA points to live in. We cool out here. I done built a house out of some trees, and my homeboy over there made a sewage. Like, I really think there are going to be communities, and I'm not necessarily suggesting the woods for everybody. But I see entire states, like entire countries, states at least, if not bigger regions of land that just splinter. You know, one of a gentleman who I also knew who is decently involved in some, we'll say, some need to know basis level, clearance level endeavors and things from back in the 2000s. He told me years ago, he said, have you ever watched the show Jericho? I said, no, I've never seen it. He's like, watch Jericho. Jericho is one of their war games. I'm like, oh. He's like, Jericho is basically a scenario that they're running because it's a narrative built around the scenario that the military is expecting / assuming will happen based on all of their practices and runs. Have you seen this show? Okay, so I won't spoil it, but the general premise that you can get just on Netflix or syndication, I think. But it was popular in like 2002, 3, and 4, or 3, 4, and 5, or something like that. I had 2.5 seasons. They canceled the third right pretty quickly into it because I think they're getting a little too on the nose of what they're showing. But what they show more or less is that a series of unfortunate events happens, and then America basically is just in the state of limbo where they don't know what to do, and aid starts coming, just being helicoptered in. What they notice is that the aid is coming from different countries. Like a whole pallet will drop out of the sky and it'll say Germany on it. A whole pallet will drop out of the sky and say China on it. A whole pallet will drop 2 cities over and it'll say like England or UK or whatever on it. And people are like, oh, cool, like a United Nations effort. And then they later realize, oh, no. These people are giving us food because they now own our territory or sponsor our territory. And the United States ends up splitting into multiple countries that other countries lay stake on. And the show doesn't get into the like interpersonal dynamics of the bigger story. They mostly focus on this city called Jericho, Kansas, that's pretty close to Denver, Colorado. But it's a very fascinating look as to how this, and I remember watching this and being like, you know, I think it would go down a little something like this. This is dramatized, but I very much see people just being like, I'm sticking to me and mines in my neighborhood, the people that I trust. The problem is that the show is set in small town Kansas where everybody trusts everybody. People who live in North Carolina or, you know, San Diego's like, I don't even know half my neighbors. I don't trust these fools. Like, these people probably just turn me in. So I look at it like people are going to, like, what they're going to do is smoke everybody out. They're going to say, boo, punch, like, oh, wow, oh, whoa, did you just see that? You punch in the face. Like, who did that? I'm pretty sure I thought it was you. Like, why'd you hit me? Like, I didn't hit you. Something hit you, but it wasn't me. But did you just see what happened? Look at all these people are punched. They're all stunned. So I think what we need to do is go over here and wait for this teacher, the faculty member, to help tell us what to do. And the faculty member's in on the bully hustle too. So the faculty member calls over, all right, Billy, did you punch them? No, ma'am. All right, Billy. Well, if Billy punches you again, you let me know. And then Billy does it because the faculty member is in on the hustle. That's what's about to happen, like resource wise. I mean, they've already said it in their cyber polygon thing. With the next great threat facing everybody is a cyber pandemic. Oh, got it. And in this cyber pandemic, a virus infects the internet and you need a vaccine. They say this, we need a vaccine for the internet to fix the virus. They literally say that in their cyber polygon war game. And so I'm like, nobody knows how this works. They're just going to hear it on TV and be like, oh, the Russians hacked. They just did like this a bunch on the computer. And then it's just like, that's not how these things work. It doesn't work that easy. These things have checks and balances. Half the stuff is not even online so that they can't be hacked. It's like they don't even plug it into the internet. Like, come on, y'all. None of y'all know how this stuff works. So when this happens and eventually the power comes back on or not, or does in different locations at different rates, people are going to be like, you need to help me. You need to fix this. And in that state, when there's, all right, we'll do it, but under these terms and conditions. And if you're not prepared to refuse their terms and conditions, ... They're not ever going to force you to. I don't think so. I think they want the fear and the social drama to exist around the idea of removing guns from the equation. It's too late to remove. They don't want to remove guns because I think that what they really have the capability of doing, and I heard somebody say this, it was a military general. He's like, we don't need to remove guns. He said, we have machines that'll disable your desire to flex the muscles in your right arm. So why do we need to take your gun? We can just be like, pause, and you'd be like, like get the gun, you know what I'm saying? But it's much better for them if we're killing each other with our gun. And so they don't need to take them, but they need to insinuate that they will, because they need you to be spooked that they're going to get taken, because that charges you up against that guy over there who watches MSNBC, and he's over there cheering for them to be taken because they staged some shooting at some high school and told him that you did it, when it was actually, like, most people with guns would never go into schools and shoot them. They're like, I like these bullets over here. I don't want to waste them on people I don't have any beef with. And you have your knuckleheads, but you really have your false flags that really proliferate this idea of a problem. And they're the king at false flags. They're really great at false flags. And I think that these communities in this future is going to look increasingly organic and increasingly synthetic. And people are just going to be cool with that. I mean, you can see them socially, psychologically already doing it. Every TV commercial, every major insurance company has a talking animal. Now, I like talking animals. They're funny, right? But animals don't really talk, right? It's just like a thing. And we joke, Heathcliff and Alf and like the cats. And then like eventually there's an Aflac duck. And then there's the emu with the Liberty Mutual emu. It's like, who is this guy? Like, who is this? But they are anthropomorphizing animals. They have this, alternative lifestyle movement with letters and acronyms and plus signs and all kinds of things that just get included. Now we have 4-star admirals. That's like, okay, anybody these days can be whatever they want to be, literally. And this is all happening, I believe, to psychologically introduce the concept that it's okay if you're not human. It's like, what is a human really? Like, a man is a man. Masculinity is toxic, right? Femininity is powerful, except for in these contexts, and except for in these, they're just undoing all those. That to me, that's like social shoestrings. A lot of S's. Social shoestring. Ooh, social shoestring. else. I never had to say that 3 times fast. But that's what that's doing, is untying the laces of the mental framework of our children and our youth, so that by 10 years from when my friend told me 5 years ago, oh, I can be whatever I identify as this. I identify as that. No knock to people who identify however you identify. It's not about the individual, really. I have love for everybody. It's about the underpinnings of the social weaponization of that concept. Because being Black was being weaponized for long, and being Asian just turned out to be weaponized out of nowhere. Stop the Asian hate. Like, who hates Asians? Asians are cool. They're super smart. Most of them play instruments. Like, nobody hates Asians, really. Like, I don't think that's the thing. Oh, Asian hate.
I don't think everyone believed that.
Right, exactly. And it just kind of came out of nowhere and it disappeared out of nowhere. It's like, we like the Asian. In fact, we pretty much like everybody. Like, yeah, there's a couple knuckleheads that don't like them, but all the Black people who know some cool redneck white people are cool with the rednecks. Mm-hmm. All the rednecks that know some down-to-earth Black people are cool with the Black folks. It's not, not as crazy as y'all really think. None of y'all been to South Carolina, but it's not a lot of racism there, really. I mean, yeah, there was, but they was just being lied to at the time, too, for a different reason. And then once their programming is undone, they learn. And I think that they've been trying to get everybody to fight, and it hasn't been working. That's the biggest challenge that I see that has not worked for them, is that they have wanted us to hate each other. Yes. They have been putting these Black folk and these white folk and these Asian folk and these Indian folk and these Native American folks against one another, and it hasn't caused a lot of fighting, really. They bust out Antifa, and turns out half Black Lives Matter people's tattooing buildings and Starbucks in Seattle, and they some white folks. It's like, what? Like, stop, y'all making us look bad. That's a whole separate conversation, BLM. But I think that the human condition is good. We've proven that. The data is in. The actual clinical data suggests, based on how many Black folks I know that have beat white folks up today, and how many Asians I personally decided to spew venom at, I'm pretty sure we don't hate one another. It's a 0 in every category. It's not statistically significant. So I just think that it's not working. And so they're resorting to other approaches that are more psychological, that basically are just like, all right, well, just shut the power off and just make them sweat it out. And if people are prepared enough, literally, mentally, and physically, you're going to sit right there and be doing crossword puzzles and hanging out. And as soon as the light come back on, you're going to go right to that backup spot you got located over there. Because at that point, life is different, man. The fork, when it comes down to, I can choose to go with this federal emergency management situation, or I can walk that way toward that patch of woods. That's a decision you're not going to want to have to make if that's the first time you're thinking about it. Yep. If that's the first time you're thinking about it, that's not the decision you want to make. I mean, we can think of less dire situations. Like, oh, I'm arranging a marriage. You got to marry her. Lift the veil up, right? Oh, she could be a beauty, but she could be a booty. It could look like booty. And you don't know. But it's a decision you don't generally want to have to make at that moment, at that altar, in that arranged marriage. So you date and you see the bride beforehand, before the veil gets put on. And I think right now, psychologically, people need to prepare for the worst, but hope for the best. And just expect that there is a fork coming. And as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be communities that, who knows how big or small they are, but you know how this is. You could have a neighborhood with 10 people, 20 families, and y'all be happy. We good. I don't need none of y'all. I'm good. I'm good. I don't need none of y'all, really. I like y'all, but I don't need y'all. All right, we're good over here. And there are going to be communities forming, I believe, like that. I believe there already are forming. A lot of people's guts are telling them, listen, the Great Depression happened, and if you could have had an outhouse and a farmhouse at the time, wouldn't that have been a thing? Wouldn't that have been something, right? The Byzantine Empire fell. The Bolshevik Revolution was televised. The Mao, excuse me, the Mao dynasty, the Stalin, all these different genocides, if you will, or these giant political moves that ushered in a lot of death, followed by a lot of change. These are historical events, right? It's not conspiracy theories. There were conspiracy theories right up until the angel of death passed through, and then all of a sudden, that's the thing. And I told somebody earlier today, I said nobody learns propaganda proactively. Like, think of all of the documentaries you've ever seen on, like, let's say North Korean propaganda, right? You're not born being given a heads up to the trick unless you're a part of a family associated with the trick. And usually they compromise in other ways. But nobody's born knowing, oh, Monsanto, just because this is a three-syllable company, they're trying to genetically modify and re-engineer all the food on the earth. Nobody tells you. You have to kind of discover that eventually. When we look at North Korean propaganda or any of the old, even when like the Rosie the Riveter and the old war propaganda, even with the like, be all you can be, the few, the proud, Marines, right? Go, weapons of mass destruction. Okay, we'll do it. I'm brave enough. I'm ready to do it. You sign up and you go. And maybe people that didn't return. You were one of the lucky ones. You return. Then you learn, okay, so there are no weapons of mass destruction. And I'm pretty sure Bin Laden and the Bush family were having lunch before that happened. And I'm almost pretty sure that nothing that y'all have ever told us is the truth. So, like, what's going on here? And you get to this place where you realize the propaganda will never be that apparent until the dust is settled. I can't tell you how many Auschwitz and Holocaust you've heard that are like, we had no idea that chamber camps were a thing and after the war. Most people will say that. Now we got the internet, so we all seen the pictures of the FEMA camps and stuff like that. But 99.9% of people will be like, I had no idea that there's FEMA camps until after the war. And so I'm trying to make sure that enough people who hear my voice don't have to be one of those people, and they can be like, oh, a FEMA camp? What is that? Let me look. Oh, that's something I would not want my family to have to end up in. Let me make preparations to circumvent that beforehand. And I think people's guts are already telling them. It's a restlessness. It's like this, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Should I stage? Where would I go? I don't even know. It's like the whole world's going crazy. It's like, and I know my wife and I have been in that state for a few years now. We haven't settled on where we ultimately will end up. And I don't know that anybody's in a season of permanent hunkering down at this moment. I really think options are your best friend. Nimbleness. Oh, I got a cottage in the mountains, a lake house, a beach house, a basement house, a grandma house, an outhouse house, a shed, a tent, a camper. You need all the options you can get, or at least have access to, because these options, I think, are going to give you an alternative to that decision where it's like, well, I see the buses lining up, but like I could go this way too, but like, hopefully you don't have to you already went that way before the buses showed up. But I just saw, I don't know, it's hard to tell with Chinese media. I saw a video not that long ago, of buses apparently rounding people up, taking them to internment camps in China. And again, I'm always like, how did this sneak out? Exactly. I can barely put a video on Instagram they don't want me to talk about. I'm pretty sure it's tough to sneak a video footage of the Chinese government out, but I'm sure there's ways to do it. It's just, who knows if that's what we're really seeing or not. But let's just say that, I don't know, all their predictions and projections are true, and that is what we're seeing. You don't want to be in that position. And I hate to sound fearful or fear-mongering. I'm really not, but it's like, if the snowstorm's coming and I'm like, yo, I know you like that bikini, but it's going to be cold. Am I really fear-mongering at that point? Am I really Debbie Downering? Or is it wisdom? Like, where does if Noah was like, yo, Noah, listen, it's going to rain. You can build a boat if you want to. You don't have to. And Noah's like, all right, guy, I get to it. I get a boat. Well, I'm going to give to that and say, give me 120 years and then I'll get your boat. Right? If he never builds this ark, where the ... right? Like, so I look at it all like, we are here for this is a crazy time to be alive. And I think that there's people in this truth movement who have been given the voice to speak in a way that has a resonant frequency that just vibrates stronger, or it's a harmonic. I mean, like, if you're musically playing any music instruments.
I did. I used to. I was in marching band.
You in marching band? What did you play?
Trumpet, man.
Trumpet. Okay. So you're familiar, C and da, right? So you're familiar with the idea of resonance or harmonics, right?
Of course.
So a harmonic, for people who don't know, it's like the greatest example of a harmonic is when you're jumping on a trampoline with your homeboys and then your friend double jumps you. And it's like y'all like jump one another and you go like even higher. Harmonics are like frequencies that just resonate because they mathematically align with the division in half and by 4 and all of all the frequencies that are so kind of just sonically sound at that point in the audio spectrum that they just jump off the charts sonically, and they refer to them as harmonics. And I get the impression that you, me, Miles, these are harmonics of the truth. We're harmonics of the truth. We just thump it a little louder. We didn't invent none of this information. It's like you didn't just wake up one day and have an epiphany. It took time to develop the things that you now understand. Same with me, multiple years. But we have become these important notes on, you can't see you can kind of see it. We have become these important notes on the piano where you're talking an F sharp. The 3 of that. F and F. These are they would create harmonics because they're the same exact frequency, mathematically, algebraically, creating this greater step. So I'm an F sharp, you an F sharp, we all got some F sharps up in here. And I think that harmonically speaking, we just need to make sure we're staying on point and on message, which really is hope, love, harmony, truth, solutions, inspiration. That's part of why we pivoted to making music as a part of our stories, because I'm like, listen, I can hit you all day and all night with some CDC numbers. I don't even know if they lied about these two, but at the end of the day, let's just put on some music. And like, what do you like? Music? I like music. Okay, let's listen to music. We didn't talk numbers enough, and I feel like that helps some. You know what I mean?
I think that's such a powerful way to say it, right? Because I think we're looking at it, right, and we're watching this script, right, the scripted playbook. And you're like, this is horrible, right? Like from Newsom to just Fauci to just how these guys are navigating. You're like, just by watching it, it's either a terrible movie or it's a horrible comedian, or like you can just sense it after a while where it's been going so long. And then you look at the other side of things where you recognize that I've never met you. I watch your stuff. I love it. I resonate with it. We're pushing 2 hours right now. And at the end of the day, like, we could probably go all night because it becomes this symphony and this synergy of messages of different fields, because that's essentially what I believe the human being is.
That's a great way to put it.
Is one of the most harmonic, resonant beings, whether you want to look at it neurophysiologically, or you want to look at epigenetics, or you want to look at it just by pure energy.
That's what I like talking about. Everything.
Like it's crazy to think now. And this is where I've been coming from a lot lately, just as an example of, like, we go to the county supervisors in San Diego, right? And we talked about this a little bit before. I don't even know if I'm going to use that example. Maybe I will. But Nathan Fletcher's a member of the World Economic Forum. Like, now we're just like, that's just, okay, the spade is there. We're going to call that spade. You got that spade? Okay, we know you have that spade. We know you're not listening. But you know what? We know you're going to vote because you have the 3 out of the 5 people on your panel. But we're going to show up because we can say whatever we want to. We're going to show up because it's not about me speaking at you, county supervisor. It's me finding my people, and me finding the people that are going to vibrate at the same frequency together. And then we're going to build this little tribe together. But it's not even just about that. We're going to screen capture that off of your site that you have to make public record. We're going to put it on a bigger platform because we're going to give people evidence, because the people that feel like they're alone actually aren't alone. Actually, now it's not just that we just need a little bit of that synergy, right? You don't need the 100%, like you don't need a majority, like you're saying. But I think it's impossible for us not to become the majority now.
I think we're already the majority. I think you're right.
I'm certain that we are.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's like, oh man, me meeting you, never met before, never would have met probably before.
If it weren't for a bat and a penguin, I mean, a bioweapon and a Chinese
bat soup. My people, right? It's always an animal and a foreign people, right?
Right. Exactly.
And it's deadly, right? It's deadly. Right. I was just in Marietta, and there's a sheriff, there's a legislator, there's a nurse, there's another chiropractor, there's 2 presidents of 2 startup nonprofit organizations for health freedom, and we didn't know each other beforehand. And it's like, holy cow, like this is crazy. Like it is, in my opinion, one of the greatest times to be alive, because I don't know if you guys would have, but would you guys have had a home birth?
We did.
You wouldn't know, would you have? If
no, we would have. Ours was before COVID started, so we were like, she was born like 4 months.
Oh yeah, she's 2019. Sorry, my bad. But my practice is a prenatal pediatric practice.
Oh wow.
I have more people in my practice that are having babies at home than in the history of my practice.
Wow. And what has been their collective experience?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Like the redemptive birth, or the how I was always taught that birth was an emergency. I was always taught all the things that you're talking about, the instability, the fear mongering, the disempowerment, the dehumanization. And it takes this thing to like create this little subculture.
Right. That's actually bigger than, like, this is how you know that evil ain't gonna prevail really. Yeah. It's because it's too many spin-offs, it's too many sequels, it's too many side TV shows of good times and happy days that are wonderful lives that are spinning off of the tragedy. And they claim they're at 60% fully vaccinated uptake. I really think that they're lying, and that they just had, by this date, we're going to say this many people, and it's just going to trickle in this linear fashion. Because to me, it's like, look at consumption of any product. Look at a PlayStation. Spike at the initial, and then it wanes, and then it basically flatlines. It's not linear. Yeah. It's not linear in the other direction, especially. Like, no. Nobody got it at first, but now 50,000 people are buying PlayStations every weekend. It's like a product, if it's popular, spikes and dips and then flatlines, period. Always. They out here like, oh no, we had a spike, but then we've kind of just had this like subtle, no. Y'all are lying. Y'all are just, it's just embarrassing for y'all safe and effective thing that y'all keep claiming is like, the problem is they're claiming that only fringe nutcase weirdos are the only ones that don't have it. And 99% of the world are not fringe by any stretch of the imagination. So it's hard for them to convince. It's like a giant game of like, even though you're in the majority, you're in the minority. So you got, let's just round numbers and say half or a little over half. Half the people a year in are like, I ain't taking it. I'm tired of you telling me. You're going to have to shoot me or send me to the woods because I ain't taking it. The other half of the people who did take it, of that 50%, at least 25% are like, I didn't really want to take this. I just did it because I think it's the thing that everybody's supposed to do, or I need to keep my job, or I just wanted to travel, or I just, I held out for so long and then they finally mandated it or whatever. Within the remaining 25%, I put it at somewhere around 5 to 10% of the people who just drunk the Kool-Aid and are still drunk off the Kool-Aid. And so they got it in January, December. They ain't wait no lines. They didn't wait till they were told they could. They just went in the first CVS that was going to like give them some, and they got it, period. And then you have the remaining like 5 or 10% that I really think is like we trust science, and this is a good thing. And so I'm not that worried, but I'll wait my turn, and then I'll do what I'm supposed to do, and I just trust it. I feel bad for those folks because it's like I feel like their gut is not working. But I feel worse for the people in the bigger chunk of that 25% who clearly didn't want it. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I know. I would say almost everybody I know who's taken it didn't want it and took it for one reason or other. Yeah. Almost everyone, not even half, literally almost everyone.
Not helpful.
I think I know 5 or less people that were like, sign me right up. So if you're really talking about 150 million, give or take, that have not taken it, and then another 100 million that didn't really want to but did it, that's 300, 250 million out of 300 that don't actually really want the product being sold. They don't want it. Now they might do something they don't want, but they don't actually want it. And I really think that is our side. That is like, even if you got tricked or coerced into this, the bullies pull a fast one on you, hit you with a Tyson to the uppercut to the chin, it's okay. You're still my friend. Just don't hate. Just don't call me no anti-science person, because I was looking at the science and you was. But I really look at the allies that we move forward with as all of that 90% of people. So the only thing that could possibly throw a wrench in those plans is this cyber pandemic thing. And that's why I think they're pivoting. It's obvious. It's like COVID set up the precedent. It created the smoke screen and the psychological economic destabilization that a power down event could do. Now, if it was just the power just went out of nowhere and out of the blue, it would be too many backups, too many savings bonds and insurance policies in place to just keep everybody right where they was at when the light came back on. They needed to break all that stuff beforehand. Immediately after the power, because when the power goes out and comes back on, they're just going to say Wall Street was broke, the stock market's crashed, period. Nobody has, don't ask too many details of why. And don't ask why they went out like millions of CEOs, took tons of cash out. Don't look too hard at that. Right. Just focus on the fact that it's either a Russian bioweapon, a Russian hack, an EMP, some anti-vaxxer that ran to the building and created somebody. They'll just charge it up with these corny buckets or like corny hats that they just put everybody in. And they'll do the same thing they did with COVID. They'll never answer, we're getting to the bottom reason why. Meanwhile, this is the new internet going forward. And this is when I feel like I do see a window. You've been deleted 5 times, basically, at this point. And I really do see this window where it's going to be like, you either buy into the China-esque, granted, we're using Zoom, so I get the irony, but like you buy in to the Chinese. Again, I got Chinese friends. It's not about the people. It's about the model.
Please, bro. Asian hate, man. I'm telling you. Asian hate.
What are you? What nationality specific?
Half Chinese, half Taiwanese. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry, my family doesn't like
Taiwan and China don't even getting along half the time. The Taiwanese people are like, I'm Taiwanese. Okay. Don't confuse me. And the China people from Hong Kong are like, don't call me Chinese. I'm from Hong Kong. I've also learned that that's a difference too. But I think that what we're looking at is just a much more communistic overtone applied to the world with the veneer of capitalism and freedom, and kind of what it's the same thing that they're doing now. It's safe and effective. Put it on. Our patience is wearing thin. He's like salivating and drooling, and our patience is wearing thin. It's like, do you want to growl? Like what emotion are you feeling right now, Joe? Because you're clearly not reading this teleprompter well. And I'm just looking at it like they're gonna try that, but that's just going to create emerging markets. It's the same thing you're talking about at the beginning.
Yep.
Where there's a void,
yep,
and a need is met, and when that need is met, it gets met, and the new thing often is better than the thing that existed before the void. Or we find out it's actually better to communicate in person Wow. You mean like how people did it for all of eternity up until 2005? Wow. Wow. Like that meme with that little kid. Like, wow. How about this? And I really do look at things like that, like this online thing is this attempt at creating a synthetic dimension.
Mhm.
I try to keep it practical, and then sometimes I wax spiritual. But I really do believe in a creator, and I really do believe in a loving creator, because I think that if I know how to love something, and I'm only 37 years out from just dropping out of a uterus and crying and pooping on myself and not knowing anything about the world, 37 years later, I'm contributing to someone else popping out of a uterus, crying, not knowing anything about the world. And I can feel that. I'm convinced that something back in the historical chain had that as a part of their makeup to allow me to have it as a part of my makeup. Defining it gets you into all kinds of conversations depending on who you're talking. But I also feel that we are at this place where the created being is being terraformed. Earth, honestly, is being terraformed in this way where attention and energy is being more applied to digital applications than analog applications. And the convergence point that we're all told is singularity as this mythical, future, distant thing by which AI becomes smart enough to update itself, is a little bit of a red herring and a misnomer. Mm-hmm. Intelligent, the concept AI just trudges forward with the assumption that intelligence can be artificial. Now, I understand AI from a computer science sense is pretty much just instruction sets. If this, then that. Mm-hmm. A series of if-then questions and answers. However, when you're getting into quantum computing, and what I really think might be happening with this DARPA connection within this vaccine, you're dealing with like influence outside of dimensions, in the words of the people who make the quantum computers, not even my words, that's their words. So when they talking about, computing in parallel dimensions, 512 up to 512 by 512, like 512 to the 512th power parallel dimensions at the same time. So my ears perk up because I'm like, y'all can call it a conspiracy if you want to, but that he does run the D-Wave company, and that is a real computer. It's like, it's right there. You can see it right in the room. So it's either you understand the game he's playing or you don't. And when I look at that, I look and I go, there's your singularity right there. There's your artificial intelligence right there. It's the point at which the influence of a system, be a bodily system, a computer system, is gameable from things beyond our control, to the point where an incubating, terminal, right? Computers, then it became laptops, then it became phones, then it became watches, it became little dots we stick on our forehead like in Black Mirror. But the terminal at the end of the day is the portal by which the sentient thing influences the non-sentient thing. And at any given point, the tale is the wild, wild west if my sentience is removed through esoteric practices, through death, through ritual, through trauma, through, graphene, through who knows what, right? I don't profess to know all the ways that could happen. You go to a funeral, you see a dead person, it's like, that's Uncle Jerry, but that ain't Uncle Jerry. He ain't there. You can see he's not there. Whatever the he part of he isn't there. His pronoun is notwithstanding. But if that sentience is given life via proxy, no different than your computer's given life of my space on your screen through the internet, then we're really in this whole new paradigm, this whole new world, where I don't really think artificial intelligence is a great way to term it at all. I think like synthetic sentience is maybe the better way to put it, because what you're doing is creating vehicles for, I fully believe that a human is a vehicle that a spirit inhabits, a human spirit. I believe people can be demon possessed and be vehicles where demonic spirits inhabit them. I also believe that people can have other types of spirits inhabit them, whether we're talking spirits of healing or spirits of righteousness in the case of miracles, or spirits of destruction. I mean, the whole Travis Scott concert thing comes up to mind, right?
Yeah.
So there's this whole it's a whole conversation that's much, much bigger than COVID. But because COVID is the barrier by which most people will at least listen up, since it is affecting, everything that they know and love in life, parlaying that into the bigger discussion is a really tricky thing too. So this is why I think what you were saying earlier is very important about just how I've had a tickle in my throat all day.
Goodness.
I'm not going to have this tickle by the time I go in this interview, and it's still there. My throat feels fine. It's not scratchy. I feel great. I just have been coughing all afternoon. The thing you were saying earlier, just about people, or the way that a system, a body system works, I think they're re-engineering that. And I look at everything we've been told at this point is an inverted thing. I'm more inclined to believe that humans and gorillas, or humans and some primate, were hybridized to make monkeys, not monkeys come from humans. So they're not humans come from monkeys come from humans. You look at them, they do look very human-like, but I think they just inverted everything, right? Mock the things that help and promote the things that kill. So I look at this like we're almost at the end of one era, but I really do see this entire Western medical system crumbling. And I see that they've already started putting Fauci under the bus for it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that what's going to happen is this pseudo renaissance. It's going to be a false renaissance, I think. There's going to be a false renaissance happening, a true renaissance happening, and then a crumbling of the old system all at the same time. And I think that a lot of people are going to get caught up in this false light renaissance, but at the same time, I really get the impression that the communities of people that will be forming around just like what's really going on, and that comes from God. I really do believe that comes from above. It's almost like, how am I the guy that figured it out? I don't know. I was just making videos one day in LA, and then I just figured, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why you're here, but we're here, right? You had to practice. You deal with children a lot, and something led you into looking further beyond the veil of what we were being told by our regulatory agencies. And here you are. And then you go to Marietta, and you're meeting people who are on other random journeys disconnected from yours, but connected in every possible way. That's the weird thing, right? So connected despite being so disconnected. So we're really sitting here at this nexus point. I don't know who the guy was, but I saw somebody repost them from a few days ago after the metaverse was announced. And he was basically like, the metaverse is not a place, it's a time, it's a when. And his whole approach to it, which I thought was very solid, was like, the metaverse is the point at which your focus is more inside the box than outside the box. Mm. Then it's done. Like the reality will follow what the mind engages. I mean, as a chiropractor, I guarantee you, if your patients come in, I mean, you deal with children, but if you're dealing with older patients and they're like, I'm pretty sure I'm sick, I think I'm going to get sick, I'm pretty sure I'm sick, what ends up happening?
They get sick.
They get sick. It's like kind of just the way that happens. And then you see what they call the nocebo effect, where the opposite happens. Like, I am healed, I'm gonna get this, I'm gonna beat this, and then 3 months later, 2 months later, however long, and I'm doc, look, I'm healed, I'm better. It just works like this. So the second we really just fold in, like, all right, work is online, school is online, interactions online, communications online, passports are online, health systems are online, medical records are online, finances are online, all money's online, blockchain this and blockchain that, and crypto this. It's like, no knock on the crypto guys. I get it. Get your money. I ain't even mad at you. I'm kind of mad I missed the wave back when I started to buy Bitcoin. It was $200 because I was learning about this stuff back then, but I dragged my feet on it, and I won't cry for spilled billions of gallons of spilled milk. But I think that I think that organic and natural is going to resurge, and that resurgence is going to be a renaissance of sorts. And that renaissance is very much going to seem like this is what we've all been living for. It's almost like the hippies in a way in the 70s, like natural and we don't shower, but we love it. I'll be showering. But you know what I'm saying? Just nature, and a very nature forward embrace. While simultaneously across town, you have the zombies and the robots. And I don't know where, again, I'm pulling all these random quotes. I forget where I saw them, but I remember just seeing the other day, somebody showed me a meme or a quote that said, the future is going to be comprised of animated, like spiritual machines and soulless men. And I remember being like, morbid, partially true, not as far as I'm concerned, but I see your point. That's what I thought. I'm like, well, not for me, but you got a point. I do agree for the most part. And so I just am trying to make sure that people have options and that people have an angle, and they can laugh a little bit at this all, because if we can't laugh, then we'll all go crazy.
It's crazy because I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot. It was maybe 7-8 years ago. Power went out in San Diego for like a few days, and the day that it went out, I saw the optometrist leave. I saw the dentist leave. I saw everybody close up shop because they couldn't practice. And my patients started texting in like, can we come in? Like, yeah. Well, like, got a candle, flashlight. I got my hands. You know, all I need is a table. I don't even need a table. You know, I don't. And it used to
like tell them to stand like this, and then you lift them up, and like, or is that really bad to do?
Depends on the person. Depends who's doing it.
Got it.
Right? All the injuries in chiropractic was just very funny because a lot of people are scared of chiropractic. Like, compare malpractice insurances, and then you'll see who has the higher risk, right? Yeah. But all the data in the world that shows any risk for any spinal adjustment or manipulation is if somebody untrained does it too, right? So as long as they go to school and they're trained and they're safe, then it's virtually the safest practice that could be. But that's a good one, actually, especially if you're 6'7", because the world's not made for you, right?
I know, right? I'll be trying not to complain, but I'm like, y'all short people, y'all got a thing coming. Y'all can sit on planes and buses and trains and cars. I can't even do none of that. Y'all feet don't hang off the bed when y'all sleep. Oh, my feet be hanging off the bed.
Do you have time for one more question?
Of course.
Last one, man, because we've covered so much ground, and I'm so glad we did. And this is probably going to split into 2 episodes because
that's cool.
Because it's awesome, and I think people need to digest it. And I love the fact that you went everywhere, and I think you went like into the dark areas that people need to be prepared for, because the people who are listening to this will chew it up, and they will digest it, and they will come out with something that's actually, you know, more tangible and new for them. But if there was one thing that you could have people be, you know, if you could move people of our audience in a direction, including getting your apocalypse package, right? For sure. Yeah. But what's one thing that you would suggest that they do?
The best thing that I've told people is to start preparing spiritually, mentally, and physically. And do a little bit at a time. Don't try to like drop $100,000 on a whole island. Just take $100 bill and go to the dollar store and get 100 things or 99 things that you could find useful if there was no dollar store next week. You know, Brillo pads, paper towels, plastic cups, all this stuff. You don't need to overthink it, but from a physical aspect, water, food, just enough for your family to have a week, at least a week, if not a month or 2, where y'all don't have to panic.
Yeah.
Medications, pet food, all that stuff. Mentally, be cognizant of the fact that we're in a psychological battle. And your mind is going to have to be strong, and you're going to have to give it breaks from the trauma, or you will succumb to the trauma. Memes are hilarious, but memes are like kind of like they're short for mind viruses. They're like reinforcing sad realities in a humorous way. Oh, yeah, the world is falling for the propaganda. That's funny. See what I mean? It's funny because it's true, but it's true, which is sad. So offset that with nature, with family, with ice cream, just whatever that just brings you joy. And I'm very much telling people, if 2020 never taught you nothing, it should have taught you that you just can't expect next year to just be next year. Like, oh, I'll go on that vacation next year. Oh, I'm gonna start this business next year. I'm gonna get this jacket that I always wanted next year. Yeah, what if there is no next year? I mean, half of y'all thought y'all gonna have 2021 is gonna be better. Oh, bye 2020. Only for 2021 to come and be like, okay, now you definitely can't go in that restaurant if you don't have a vaccine. So the psychological preparation, I believe, is something that I think is very key, because the mind has got to be strong for this. And then from the spiritual aspect, I always tell people, listen, they lied to us about everything. So I don't profess to have all the answers about God or truth, but I know one thing. I believe in a creator who is loving and who hears you. I obviously am anthropomorphizing him by calling him a he and applying human attributes to it. But if I'm really made in his image and I'm human, then that's where I'm just going to start. And I always just say, humbly, just be like, God, like, if what this dude is saying on this podcast is true, I don't even know what to do. I don't know you. I don't know nothing. I just like, help me. And like any good father, I believe that he hears the sincerity in those prayers and in those hearts, and just be like, meet me where I need to be met and help me so I can be helped, so that I can be helped to others. And if that is your heart's true desire, he will find that. He will meet you, and you will find this peace that passes all understanding in a world where people are freaking out and are having panic attacks, and whose heart is already riddled with some extra micro thrombosis events that are contributing to their thrombotic events, deep vein thrombosis and thrombocytopenia and all this thrombo. And your heart rate will stay sustained through that outside help. This COVID, I'm strong, but I ain't that strong. And I think it's the mark of a true man, I really think, to show strength where strength is necessary, but also show vulnerability and the idea, I don't say weakness, but just like the other half of the equation or whatever, when that time is necessary, because none of us have it all figured out. None of us can lift the entire world, right? We can, half of us can't even lift 245s on the end of the bar. So we try, but we have a responsibility for our families as men, as fathers, and we have little children, ladies, to really show a world that doesn't have to be toxic, and that doesn't have to be riddled with confusing pronouns that confuse their little minds, but at the same time can show love to everybody else who might have modifiable pronouns or confusion or hate or hurt in their heart for whatever reason. And so I look at it all like that. To answer your question, just get ready for the tournament that's coming up. We're going into the playoffs. We made it to the playoffs, y'all, and playoffs start pretty soon, maybe in this dark winter. And you have to be prepared spiritually, physically, and practically, or you're just going to be in the cold, and your kid's going to look at you and be like, what do we do? And unless you're really, unless you're really trying to go trust in the government with the government option, which is pretty much going to be given as the only solution, then you might want to have some backup plans. And I think that there's time. Noah had 120 years. I don't think we got that long. I don't think so. But we might have 120 months. I don't know. We might have 120 weeks. I don't know. That's enough to go to a dollar store a few times. And just put yourself in a position so that you can be sustainable for your home, sustainable to be able to help your neighbor, Because even if you don't know them, that's the best way to get to know them is, but listen, we all in a crisis and I got an extra jug of water. Here you go. That's going to go a long way. And that's what's going to actually beat the tyranny when it really comes down. The pressure points really get pushed. When they start hitting that one pressure point with the thing at the, you know what that pressure point is, start making you want to drop, look like Woody doll, just drop to your knees. It's going to need the support of our communities. And they've done a great job of socially engineering out the concept of practical physical community. But I think that where a void exists, a solution will be found. And I think that that solution would be very beautiful.
I think that's, oh man. I was thinking back to what you said about like just love in general and the benevolent nature of this creator.
Uh-huh.
And I've been taught it this way through my best teachers. Just there's only one way on the planet, man. And it's through what your wife did, what my wife did, growing this freaking life.
Yeah.
And some of my teachers, you know, yes, very clinical, yes, all these things about 50,000 neurons per second, 2 cells to 26 billion cells in 9 months. No one consciously thinks about it. But they call it the most amazing form of love and compassion that exists is the gestational process of becoming a human being.
Yeah.
And nobody gets, you know, a baby born and you're there in home birth. Like nobody's
You're
like,
there.
there's no hate, you know, there's no hate there. There's no like judgment. There's no like take it back. You know, like,
I gotta look right now. I gotta keep my eye on. I'm judging.
Take the tag off of that baby. Come on, dude. It's the greatest love that you could ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no opting out. Like
Right.
no way that you can ever like be exempt from that.
Right.
And so, and I would say like scientists are still humble to the fact that they can't even make a cell. Like they might graphene oxide us, or they might mRNA us, or they might do all these things, but they have to have a sentient being to do it.
Right.
And I don't believe there is an extraction of the wholeness of that sentient aspect, which is why I believe we're winning. You know, it's why I believe the human spirit could never be measured, could never be quantifiable, because it's an infinite source that we're just made in the image of, man, you know? Yeah. And what you shared is so perfect because it is not doom and gloom. It is not scare. It is not fear mongering. It is reality to the point where the level of education that who knows why your dad gave you a documentary or why somebody dropped books in your world and why you took a break and started to dive into it as what was it? The movie, Tom Hanks movie.
Oh yeah. Castaway.
Castaway. You know, like all the different things. There's an infinite number of things that have happened to make us even be possible to be here and now together. And at the end of the day, it's like, why? Because there is order, because there is intelligence, because there is an infinite wisdom that we could never, ever know. And if you focus there and you prepare to guard your mind, heart, and soul, to just continually realize that sometimes with like what we're doing, right? I made a post on Facebook with the birthing community because it's been captured, like completely captured in San Diego. Virtue signaling, home birth midwives recommending shots. And you're just like, where the fuck are my people? You know, like the people that brought me into this movement of like life and
like medicine that focuses on life and not death.
And then, so I was like, I'm going to post in this group, 600 birth workers, see what happens. Somebody came by yesterday. She's like, I was going to quit. I didn't know anybody was there. All I did was write a post. I was like, hey, you know, we just care that our people have people that aren't going to be like shaming them, coercing them, manipulating them, forwarding, you know, only one side, blah, blah, blah. Maybe respect their choice. And she came in and was like, I haven't seen you in so long. I've known her for like 5-6 years. And we gave each other a hug and we shook each other's hand. She dropped off her cards and I was like, man, this is like old school networking, you know?
Yeah,
get some coffee, like, you know, like.
And, you actually rubbed her elbow by accident? Like, oh, wow.
And that's what we have to do, right? That's what we have to go back to that like just human connection, because that is what they've weaponized in so many ways: the separation, the divisiveness, the demonization, vilification of the other.
of the
and
other.
and at this
It started with, bro, it has everything to do with, I believe, the mask. I think the mask plays the biggest part in it, because what it's subtly psychologically doing is it's validating you being sick without you being sick.
yeah
That's before there was a mask mandate.
yeah
The virus was like around, I guess, but it wasn't the assumption every single person had.
hmm hmm
It was just like up there somewhere. The second these masks came on and stayed on for over a year, the narrative shifted into this idea that you're sick until proven guilty.
yeah
That is, who knows if it's Tavistock specifically, but think tank behavioral science college instituted level social conditioning. Because at this point, it's like you don't have to say it anymore. You walk in certain places and you don't have a mask, and they literally think that you're actually sick. You could be vaccinated. You could have just come from taking a negative test, never felt better a day in your life, but you were sick to everybody in the same store you're in. How did that happen? Like, without anybody actually saying that out loud. And that's the part that I think that's what's going to break, because eventually people are going to accidentally be forced to hug, and then nobody's going to die, and we're going to realize, oh wait, so we're not all sick. And they're like, no. And you're like, okay, so then what are we all wearing these stupid things on our face for? Like, yeah, I don't know, let's take them off and let's get along and try to figure out how to get some food and get some heat and get up out of here. And when that happens, these elite are just going to be all over in their private bunkers or mountain caves or wherever. But I really don't think it's possible to break the human spirit altogether.
Mhm.
I mean, we've had some pretty tragic wars and depressions and stuff, and here we all are laughing and joking from it.
Better
And
than
so I really don't think that they'll be able to break it fully, but it might splinter and it might suffer a season where it's lower. And I think that just as 2019 came and went, and boy, oh boy, did I wish things were like it was back then, time will go on.
Yep.
And I really think that I don't put it like this. I don't think that these vaccine mandates and these strict measures will hold in all locations. I really think we're going to be like, I'm going to fly to, Pfizer owned Israel. And because Israel, say what?
They're doing that though, right?
I know.
Yeah.
They're already starting, like, in Israel in particular, it's like you have to be vaccinated to enter, and it's mostly Pfizer. But I'm talking about Pfizer literally owning the municipal right. And I don't know if you've seen any information on the leaked contract terms. You seen this?
I've seen that. I've heard of that in South America, where they are literally leveraging military. They're leveraging like government
National assets.
Crazy,
bro. I've seen so much in this study that nothing things surprise me. They don't phase me. This was one of the things that phases me that I've seen recently, that I'm like, yo, if this is what's happening, like, this is crazy, y'all. Like what? Like, who signs a contract that's like, oh yeah, you're gonna pay us a few $100 million, and we're gonna give you some vaccines. We're not gonna tell you what's in it. We're gonna do it on our terms. And if you break any of the terms of this contract, we own your country. Also, if you receive a gift from any person who's not us of additional vaccine doses, that's a breach of contract, and we own your country. I mean, leveraging national assets is in the document.
Yep.
And I'm like, yo, this is some next level coup d'etat. This is a pharmaceutical coup d'etat. It's not a military anymore. Like, are you seeing the meme with the bullets and the rifles and the rockets, and then the I mean, it's like, as an artist, I look at it and I'm like, I mean, y'all, come on now. Like, come on. Like, it's right there. Like, it's right there. It's right there. It's like when I look at it, like, I apply what I call the time capsule example. If you can take a meme or an image and put it in a time capsule, and in 1,000 years, something can take it out and then see evidence of the meme bearing true in a historical record, then at that point, it's not a meme anymore. It's like a history book out of the future history. It's a book out of the future history page. And so if we can imagine that degradation of DNA, the most recent study that I'm hearing is this one that came out, is it Japan or somewhere, that talked about, is the autopsy one about the finding the spike protein in the nucleus of the cell. I forget where it was from. And the whole conversation is like, mRNA is not DNA, it does not go into the cytoplasm, it stays in the cytoplasm. It's impossible. Like,
biologically implausible.
It's biologically impossible. Like, nothing's biologically impossible if you don't even know what's in it. Like, dog, how you gonna say that? You don't even know the ingredients. 119 ingredients. Oh no, but it's impossible. It's like, let me ask you if my mystical ice cream that's got 119 ingredients is impossible to give you gas. You don't know what's in it. Eat it. You can't say it's impossible. I'll never have gas. I'll never have lactose intolerance. You don't know. And here we are. But if this is all going according to what clearly it looks like it's going, in terms of just wreaking havoc on the body's immune system long term, then we will see some complications, and who knows if people will even admit by that point that it had anything to do with the vaccine. But we will also see this, that we also see this kind of this battlefield that's new. And one thing that I learned very recently, remember with the creation of Space Force, this new division of the military, I remember seeing Joe Biden speak about something, a clip of him speaking, and I go, oh, there's a Space Force flag right behind him. I thought y'all side of the tennis court didn't think that was a viable thing. Like, y'all were mocking that when it first came out. So, like, why do y'all still have the flag there, right? And so then I talked to a buddy of mine who is in the Air Force, and he was letting me know that, he's like, I'm not involved with Space Force, but from what I've been able to ascertain, it's less to do with space, like rockets, and it's way more to do with cyberspace and internet. And I remember him saying that, and I go, it clicked. It just clicked. Right when he said it, it was like this massive light bulb went off. Because here I am talking to somebody who's actually in cahoots, I'm gonna say cahoots, but connected with people in that branch. And he's like, from what I can tell, it's all about cyberspace and like cybersecurity stuff, not about space. And so I'm like, of course, space is the allegory that cyberspace is the reality of. And each little star in the sky is an IP address, and there's billions of them. And they have, from our youth, given us this allegory of like the human frontier to like fly into the clouds, straight out of Werner von Braun's Nazi playbook. And they've given us Stanley Kubrick and called it science, until Stanley Kubrick himself was like, yeah, I filmed that. Y'all realize that that's what happens. Like, I'd always known, and heard hunches, but then when you hear Stanley Kubrick say it, it's like, well, that is Stanley. He did say it. He was under the impression that the filmmaker who was interviewing him knew that it was filmed footage at the time. But then when you apply that whole thing with military and Tesla sending cars to Mars, all this stuff, and then you hear like, well, hold on, y'all are treating this like cyberspace is a place that you have to protect with the military division. And that's when it started to click to me. These Ray Kurzweils, oh, we're going to upload our neural cortex to the cloud by 2035. Even Elon Musk, oh, I think that the world is ready for Neuralink. I mean, we told you that for 5 years and we ain't shown no functional prototype, but it'll be out pretty soon. I think that they have these technologies already ready. They just haven't hit the stage at which it's time to market them to the individual. And what that functionally will do is plug you into an agreed upon reality that your decisions have already mentally agreed upon. You're already in the device. You're on it. You're scrolling. Your world is this like 5.5 by 11 screen. Literally a black mirror.
It's no different, like you said, about the microwave.
Yeah. exactly.
The 20 years that it existed.
Yeah. She was like, oh yeah, we was using microwaves for forever. I'm like, what?
And it's just like, ha ha ha. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, yeah, we're all being programmed for that now.
Right, we are. And like it gets me when I see all the children's stuff, right? You work with children. I work in media, so I got a daughter now. I got to look at these cartoons and be like, you really want to watch this again? Like, why is there rockets? It's like I found that interesting. Dinosaurs and rockets are the two most common children's motifs. Every book, every story, every cartoon, there's always a creature that doesn't exist and a place that doesn't exist. It's like, why? Right? Butterflies are pretty for 2 months out the year. Half of them are like not that pretty. Some of them are pretty, but it's like butterflies, the animal that we don't really see that often, that sometimes isn't that pretty. Butterflies, okay. Everything, stars. Like, what is the stars? Like the stars you see in the sky aren't even shaped like. It's all of these like sprinklings of life that's not actually real life. As far as we could tell, they said that proportionally dinosaur bones don't make anatomical sense. So I'm not saying that dinosaurs don't exist. I just have a hunch that they don't look like what we've been told, and they're not nearly as old as we've been led to believe. Because I don't think they pull any idea creatively from their butt. They're always working off reality and modifying it. But we're at this place, man, where it's about to get weird and wacky. And I just look at this and I'm just in this twilight zone because I'm like, here I am looking at yet another children's programming piece where some artist like me has spent time editing and putting graphics together to depict a rocket flying up in the air, and the kid is an astronaut going off into space. And here you find out that everything that they told us about all of that was not accurate to the way they told us. And what they're projecting forward regarding that whole space has nothing to do with NASA and everything to do with Wreck-It Ralph and like living in the internet. And so I'm like, got it. 2035, don't it? It's like 14 years away. If the operating system that the iPhone, like if the iPhone is to 2007 as the biological,
that's a good point,
operating system is to 2021, then what does 14 years really look like? You know, I'm talking in terms of development, particularly if there's a time factor involved where you have to kind of lock everybody in. Like the iPhone, it wasn't like everybody had to have a smartphone or else. But this other system is like, it's going to be like the society is moving forward for these people in this way, or it ain't. So make your choice. Pick your operating system. You got Moderna and Pfizer, and maybe AstraZeneca and J&J will come like you're dealing with some Linux at that point.
It's man, from your journey, your story, to your own experiences, your study, to how you express it, the art, the communication style, the benevolence of service to just help people hear, right? Hear, listen, maybe discern, maybe just make a choice and realize that maybe they have a choice, to literally navigating so many different fields, from finance to healthcare to shots to Space Force. I think it's a profound experience to, one, just have the moment with you, but two, like to see how, like you were saying before, how resonant and how symphonic just human interaction can be, but also just when we're moving in the same direction with our own particular slice of everything. It's sincerely a grateful moment for me. To credit, we've never let an interview go this long. We've never let it, and it is awesome because you can navigate so many things with so much wisdom, and at the same time just be a normal ass dude, like just be a regular ass man in a moment in time that is so crazy, but do it in a way that has penetrated people's hearts and souls in a way that, like, honestly, I was looking forward to this. I didn't even know we invited you. And then I saw it and I was just like, I about dropped everything that I was doing. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This is going to be the best day of my life, because here we are, two people that we never would have known each other. And we get to move forward with our 2-year-olds, fight for
That's
the
right.
world that they're going to inherit from us.
Yeah.
Train, educate, inspire them to be good people to leave the world with. And at the same time, just have a good time, man.
Yeah.
How do people stay in contact with you?
67 podcast on Instagram or 67podcast@gmail.com.
Okay.
Reach out to me, DM me, shoot me a message. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Rumble, I'm on TikTok, but I don't have the energy for that at the moment. gotta siphon my bandwidth a bit. But 67podcast@gmail or it's at 67podcast on Instagram are the best two ways.
I think 100% of my listeners will probably be very familiar with who you are already, or at least be able to see the fully animated way that you can move. And I would say just there's something that you have also in like graphics that like is so appealing that I think I'm grateful because I get to speak to the people that I know have influenced myself, but also who have influenced this movement, and who actually are just some of the best people that I've ever actually gotten to meet. And so I'm grateful for that.
Oh, I really appreciate you saying that. That means a lot. I was really excited to do this interview as well, because ever since I found about your work, I've always found your perspective just an important puzzle piece. It's always like I'm looking at this like a sports analogy. I played basketball for such a big part of my life, and so I go, he on my team. I'm like looking at the court. We're about to play a pickup game. Like, okay, Dr. Campbell, he can be on my team. Miles, he can be on my team. Dr. Hom, yeah, you on my team. We on the team. I pick him. He on my team. That's what we're picking teams at this point. And I just see, I my channel, people might notice I don't post things every day. And I'm on it every day. I'm looking, I'm interacting, but I noticed that I just take this personally, a little bit of a less is more approach, because I really want to listen and try to get a beat on, okay, this is the conversation that's going on. Okay, how can I pour into this? I'm about to do a new series regarding this whole kids thing. Ugh. It's just been irking me, because I'm seeing too many parents. I really do think a lot of people get it, but there's still like something that needs to be said for the thick propaganda around this whole thing. And I would be remiss if I didn't say anything, but I try to just contribute and observe, participate. I don't ever want to be seen as like I'm way up there. I mean, even though for most of y'all show people I am way up there, but I'm just, my heart is lower, my head, the top of my head just higher up. And I really appreciate all of the people and experiences that I've met so far. It's just been such a beautiful, like, beautiful, random, wild, amazing, odd journey. Like, it's great. And that's what I love about social media. I'm connecting straight to the people, no middleman. People are like, oh, I don't get my information from social media. It's like, if Anthony Fauci's on the other end of the phone, are you really getting the information from Facebook? Is it Facebook? It's Facebook. Social media. That's who's talking to you. Social media is talking to you. Or is it actually just Anthony Fauci right over there? Is Dr. Hom, is it social media, or is it an actual licensed physician, chiropractor, pediatric chiropractor? Like, is it Twitter telling me that, or is it him using Twitter? It's like, is it CNN? Is it Vizio or LG telling me the news, or is it like Anderson Cooper sitting up there telling me the news? You know what I mean? So I really find that the platforms have done an amazing job at just creating a conversation, despite all the things that they are problematic with. They create this conversation that just cuts out all the middlemen, and it puts you right 1 degree away from the actual nugget or puzzle piece. And that's beautiful, because It's a beautiful puzzle. Humanity, life, human nature, humankind, the human experience is a very amazing puzzle with tons of color, tons of nuance and flavor and texture and all kinds of stuff. But if we really over here looking at Starry-Eyed Night and I'm like, I'm a blue chip, well, I'm a yellow chip. So our kind just stay over here. And the puzzle is never complete. The picture is never painted.
And I think that's why we win, man. I think it's why we win, because on the other end is just, I think we're seeing authenticity come back, transparency come back, integrity come back in a way that it always has had to be. It's always had to be front and center at our core. And when it's clearly like that, people like you will resonate to the core of others, because you listen and you hear it and you see them and you value them. And when you contribute to them, they can't not pull at their heartstrings, And so I am grateful. This has been one of the best interviews that I've done. I now think we may break it into 3 parts, but at the end of the day, I think people need to go back and listen to every aspect of this, because from the landscape that you shared to the practical aspects of things at the end, to even where your story started from, is there are perspectives that are unforgettable. There are perspectives that if you didn't know them before and now you do, you can't forget, like you will never unknow them. And when you see something that you can unsee, and you know something that you can't unknow, and it's that level of truth, I mean, where it goes in the future is going to be a beautiful thing. So I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And
yeah, you're very welcome.
I can't wait to see how this reverberates through our universe, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You have a great evening, and everybody watching this, you have a great day.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of the Future Generations podcast. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes and Spotify. For more resources based on today's episode, as well as more ways to inspire a brighter future for you and your family, visit us at thefuturegen.com. That's all available exclusively on thefuturegen.com.